Hello everyone, and welcome to Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting series on what if Naruto had the power of bat-themed heroes. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. The Elemental Nations, lands ruled by wars of stealth and shadow. Each land in a constant struggle with each other for a piece of the pie, always seeking to expand their control. For years the villages of Stone, Mist, Sand, Lightning, Sound, and Leaf have all fought that endless war. Each nation scrambled to find the ultimate weapon to turn the tides in their favor. Ranging from the attempted breeding of super soldiers to experimental drugs, and finally demons. Kumo was the first with the sealing of both the 5 and 2-tailed demons. After word got out, all the other nations scrambled to find their own demon to seal. Konoha was lucky, or unlucky depending on your viewpoint. Kyuubi no Kitsune, the legendary 9-tailed fox, attacked. Their Hokage sealed it inside a child just before dying. That child's name was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, son of the 4th Hokage. He grew up hated for unknowingly containing the beast, a victim to irrational hatred and human ignorance. For 6 years he took it without raising a hand in self-defense. At age 7 he snapped. On October 10th, Naruto was tortured, beaten, and nearly killed until an unnatural rage filled his tiny body. It was a bloodbath. Sarutobi, the Hokage, rushed to save the boy but arrived with his Anbu just in time to see the 7-year-old tackle the only surviving man and start beating his head in, laughing insanely. Naruto was diagnosed as clinically insane the very next day and locked in a padded cell for the next 4 years with hardly any visitors. When the council decided that Naruto was to be killed due to being a complete burden on the village, Sarutobi was forced to reveal Naruto's blood status as the only surviving Namikaze and the only male Uzumaki since his mother and older sister were still alive. The resulting panic and chaos was astounding. Naruto was to be imminently released and have his mind repaired by the best mind walkers in the village, Inochi Yamanaka. Then he would receive the best training possible after he was cleared from a medical check that was 7 years late. Sarutobi thought it was funny to see them all plan to get back in Naruto's good graces. After all, he held not only the 9-tailed fox but had the blood of 2 powerful clans coursing through his veins. When Inochi went into Naruto's room, Naruto had an insane grin on his face and was giggling dumbly. Hours later, Inochi nearly ran out of the room holding a broken nose while Naruto stood from his bed, popping his bloody knuckles. Unknown to anyone but Naruto, his mind had split and created a double to deal with all the mental trauma. So while his body was giggling and bouncing off the padded walls, his mind was wondering, and during those 4 years, he just so happened to find a sleeping fox. Kyuubi was surprised when it awoke to feel its tails fading away, even more so when it saw its container actively draining its power with a cruel smirk on his face. Human, what do you think you're doing? Demanded the enraged fox. Naruto just continued to smile darkly as the ruby-red chakra was pulled from the massive fox. I'm doing whatever I want, he stated. I've been here for a while, leafing through your mind while you sleep. You're a rather devious fox, aren't you, Kyuubi-chan? Naruto looks like a 11-year-old. The large fox started to shake while her face showed signs of pain. You worthless meatbag, I demand that you stop, she demanded with just a hint of a womanly tone. Naruto snorted. You demand? He mocked. Bitch, I'm in full control of you. To me you're no better than a wanton street whore, he said, snapping his finger, causing the vixen to howl in pain as her body shrunk and changed onto a very sexy, very nude redhead. You. What have you done, human? Kyuubi demanded, pushing herself out of the water in her cell. Naruto smirked. Not only has he been looking through her mind, but he had been absorbing parts too. He knew all that she did, her likes, dislikes, dreams. Walking through the bars like a ghost, Naruto snapped his fingers again, causing her to freeze on her hand and knees above the water. You know, Kyuubi, I'm tired of your disrespect. From now on you will call me master. Kyuubi's head snapped up at him with fury dancing in her eyes. Never, she spat, glaring at him. Naruto walked over to her and kicked her arms out from under her frozen body, sending her face first into the murky water before stomping on her head, holding it under. Kyuubi's human form struggled under the water as she ran out of air. Her lungs burned for air and spots entered her vision. The back of her head ached as his foot twisted, pulling at her fiery red hair and pushing her face harder against the cement floor. Naruto smirked and removed his foot, allowing the fox to push itself from the water and gasp for air. Cocking his arm back, Naruto unleashed an uppercut to Kyuubi's chin as she gasped and sent her onto her back under the water. During one of his adventure within her mind, Naruto learned that the Great Queen of Demons had never fucked before. The greatest of all demons was a virgin. But that didn't mean she wasn't a pervert. Her mind was like an open porno magazine for him. Oh, how the mighty have fallen, Kyuubi heard as she caught her breath. The water below her cleared and the cement floor turned to sand. Looking up, she found herself on a beach with the cage door blocking her from land. That's better, I've been meaning to change this part of my mind for a while. Kyuubi felt a tear run down her face. I'll take it up the ass, she moaned, holding onto his hand in pain. Naruto threw her to the water again. Good, now come on. Kyuubi went to stand only to have Naruto kick her leg, sending her back down. No, you crawl on your hands and fucking knees like the bitch you are, he sneered. Kyuubi held back tears and followed him to the water's edge when suddenly the gate disappeared and a metal collar appeared around her neck with a pet tag on it. It said, Kyuubi, property of Naruto. Kyuubi obediently followed her master onto the sand, uncomfortably trying to ignore the sand sticking to her wet body and onto the grass. He led her to a small house and opened the door. Stand up and go take a shower. Dress in the clothes on my bed, he told her simply. Kyuubi wordlessly stood and obeyed. Walking into the small bathroom and shutting the door, she collapsed to the floor, tears of pain and humiliation streaming down her face. Absorption of the Nine Tails' knowledge and power had opened up many doors of possibility to the man-child. He found that the Kyuubi had many powers and abilities granted by her tails, including power over raw elements, transformation, and immortality. Or that's what he wanted. The rest of her powers were locked away. For what seemed like eons, Kyuubi was forced to serve and service her blonde master. She often asked why he abused her and he always told her, you attacked and got sealed. It's your fault, the damn village hates me. At first Naruto would often got on her for the smallest mistake, but he slowly let up and even got kinder to her. He wasn't loving by any means, she was still his slave and he would remind her of that, but he wouldn't punish her brutally. Finally, after 4 years of mentally training in Kyuubi's power, Naruto felt a presence enter his mind. Out of the 4 years of being forced to obey Naruto, Kyuubi found the last to be enjoyable. Naruto had been very nice to her. He was maturing and often just sat on a large chair in his home with her in his lap. She found it strange that sitting in the lap of her abuser felt nice, made her felt safe and protected. His warm breath brushing against the back of her neck, arms wrapped Denli. Naruto's head popped up and Kyuubi gasped as she was dumped onto the floor while he stood up, looking around. Stay here, Q, he snarled. Kyuubi blinked as her blonde master disappeared into the depths of his own mind. At first he was calm and content to enjoy her company, but changed instantly for some unknown reason. End the end. Naruto had found Inochi just as he finished repairing his mind. When he awoke, Naruto slugged him in the nose as hard as he could, breaking his nose and sending the bleeding man running. Then Naruto felt just how weak he was and used Kyuubi's regeneration power to regrow all his lost muscle, almost instantly going from a skin-covered skeleton to a healthy, athletic teenager. It took him a while to get used to moving with his new body, so when he was finally comfortable, the whole hospital knew he was awake, meaning that Sarutobi was knocking at the door. Naruto sensed the old bastard behind the door, and just as the door creaked open, punched through it and hit him in the jaw. In the end, Naruto was attacked by the Hokage's bodyguards, who were all defeated until Sarutobi pleaded for Naruto to listen. Naruto did just that and allowed the old man to explain everything. Who his parents were, who his godparents were, his bloodlines, his older sister, mother. The list went on. But instead of calming him down, Naruto flipped out. Drawing on all the Kyuubi's power, Naruto attacked, causing the greatest catastrophe in history known as Kyuubi's Revenge. He destroyed everything he could: homes, stores, the ninja academy, the orphanage, clan homes, everything but the Hokage Tower. He slaughtered any human, summon, or animal that came across his path, including all the clans except for a few survivors who were smart enough to run. With most of Konoha in ruin and over 3/4 of the population dead, Naruto stormed the Hokage Tower in search of information on his bloodlines and the locations of his new targets: Jiraiya the Toad Sage, Tsunade the Slug Princess, Kushina Uzumaki, and Yui Uzumaki. His bloodlines were useless to him now and only reinforced his chakra elements and allowed him to use his father's signature jutsu, but seeing as he found the Forbidden Scroll and memorized almost every detail made up for it. From the village records, he figured that searching for Tsunade and his piece of shit mother would be best, since the Toad Sage would actively search him out once he figures out what happened. Tsunade was last seen roaming the country with her apprentice and pet pig. Kushina, however, was now with the governor of Fire Country, the whore. Leaving the tower, Naruto decided to use the exploding cone technique and get some practice. The scroll warned that overcharging it would be disastrous, so he thought it was a great idea. Creating the clone, it rushed into the tower while he bolted the other way, disappearing in a flash and reappearing miles away on a mountain. The explosion was amazing, a bright flash of white followed by a monstrous mushroom clouds and shock waves. The tower was completely gone, a deep crater in its place. For years after that, Naruto roamed the world doing whatever or whomever he wanted, earning himself the title, Bane of Humanity, and a 500 billion bounty for his head. He hadn't killed his mother or Tsunade yet, wanting them to sweat a little, but Jiraiya had came after him only to be tortured to death by Naruto. He could only imagine the looks on Tsunade and Kushina's faces when they got the packages he sent. Kushina got a scroll containing the severed head with the words, "From your loving son," carved into his forehead, while Tsunade got the headless and mutilated body with, "From your loving godson," and, "See you soon," carved in his chest. Naruto was so bad that the countries were refusing to allow people to name their children Naruto, even buy the food, Naruto. Anything remotely pertaining with the monster was banned. It had been another 4 years since he destroyed Konoha. Now at the age of 15, Naruto was dramatically different. Kyuubi had long since stopped amusing him, and raping her wasn't fun as it was when he was younger, so he had gotten rid of her. He remembered the first time she had refused him. He had been asking her to do things for a while, so when he told her that she had to do something for him, she refused. Naruto had told her that he wasn't asking this time, but she still said no. But the biggest mistake was when she slapped him. Oh, he went off. After snapping her neck, Naruto had used a forbidden jutsu to break the seal and rid himself of the demon bitch's body. Then he tracked Tsunade down to a gambling town, where she was supposedly laying low with her apprentice. Utilizing the transformation powers, Naruto disguised himself and entered with no problem, where he seduced Shizune, and after using her to quench his desires, she was knocked out and used to draw out Tsunade. It worked like a charm. Tsunade was in the streets looking for him before Shizune even awoke from her daze. Too bad for her. Naruto slit her throat right when Tsunade slid to a stop. After another battle, that town also suffered the same fate as Konoha. His list of targets was down to 2 people now, his mother and sister. For the next month, Naruto spread the word that he was gunning for Kushina and anyone she loved. Naruto wasn't stupid. He knew that a full-on attack would most likely end with him being harmed before having to flee. So he created a massive army of clones and transformed them into soldiers dressed in black armor. Using them, he launched a surprise attack on the capital. The Fire Lord and his governors all knew that he would attack, but such a massive force surprised them all. They didn't even know he had an army or how he could rally them all without anyone knowing until it was too late. The samurai were impressive, but Naruto managed to take over half of the capital in one day. He could have continued, but after hitting the halfway mark he had his soldiers halt and form a wall with their bodies straight down the middle of the capital. Realizing that they were fighting a losing battle against something that could be described as the true devil, the Fire Lord sent out a messenger to try and find a peaceful solution to it all. Surprisingly, Naruto didn't kill the man and demanded that the Fire Lord meet him on the front lines with Kushina and Yui along with his honor guard, and that as a show of truce, he would show up alone but armed. The very next morning the Fire Lord was standing with his samurai in formation while the 2 redheads were behind him, including Kushina's new husband. With a calm and cool face, Naruto strolled down the destroyed road, allowing them all to marvel at the legendary Bane of Humanity. He wore a black vest with a hood, and Wu-style armor on top, and cargo pants with boots. His hair was long, well part his neck and pulled into a low ponytail. Over his face he wore a smooth, eyeless porcelain mask that made them think he was blind. The Fire Lord asked for a way to avoid all the fighting, but Naruto only said that Kushina and Yui's life would free him in his city of his wrath. The governor scoffed and demanded to know why he should just give up his wife and child, making Naruto laugh. Removing his mask, Naruto told him that he wanted revenge against his mother and that if he had to set the world on fire to get it, he would. In the end, the governor pushed his luck and Naruto did just that, absorbing all the natural energy he could. He revealed to them that he was only a clone and that the real Naruto said, "Fuck you, but have a nice day," before unleashing a massive explosion that rocked the entire world. After that, Naruto wandered the world and realized that he had done more than get revenge. He had killed the earth. Trees were slowly dying, grass shriveling up, water evaporating. He had taken so much energy from the world that he killed it. Even with his power over nature, he couldn't supply the whole earth with fresh vegetation. "This world is dead," he mumbled, tossing a scroll full of his belon. "I believe that it's time to move on to a new one." Who would have thought that Kyuubi's old ideas were just as useful as her body? Oh well. Taking all the necessary precautions and making the preparations, Naruto smirked just before being engulfed in a flash of light. "Die, you monster!" Naruto gaped as a blinding pain shot through his heart and screamed when bolts of energy rattled his bones. A stalk of white hair entered his vision and suddenly a pulling sensation filled him along with a loud gasp from his attacker. Landing on a concrete floor, Naruto groaned as the bones, muscle, arteries, and organs in his chest rapidly regrow themselves. With an effort, he was able to weakly stand and surveyed his surroundings. "What the fuck?" he gasped. Buildings of steel and other metal stood before him. Old decrepit warehouses next to a dock. Another groan caught his attention. "Kakashi," he said with a sneer before kicking the one-eyed prick in the face. "I thought you died back with the rest of Konoha." Not getting an answer, Naruto saw him trying to make hand seals and stomped on them, eliciting a pain-filled cry. No can do, Kakashi," he said, pulling out a blade and chopping off his hands. "Can't have you getting away this time." Kakashi screamed as Naruto removed his other hand before dragging him to the water, but not before strapping him multiple times in the legs. Naruto looked around and found a heavy chain before wrapping it tightly around Kakashi's neck, which was then tied to a heavy-looking metal anchor. "You know, Kakashi, I met your teammate Rin," he said with a smirk, catching his attention. "Nice chick, nicer ass. She screamed when killed her, even called out for you to save her. Want to know where I found her?" he asked before quickly answering, "Iniwa being passed around like a bottle of sake. Even after having her ass filled so many times it was still tight as hell." Kakashi's eyes filled with tears of pain and rage until Naruto smirked. "Just kidding, she was in Kumo. But the ass part was true." Naruto then slashed his good eye and kicked the anchor, sending it into the water, dragging Kakashi by the neck into the cold depths. As he quickly passed by, Naruto saluted him with a smile before walking off, leaving his past behind. Prologue end. After his mafia-style execution of Kakashi, Naruto disappeared into the new city. After scoping out the city, he learned that it was called Gotham City and found that it was his kind of city, peaceful even. The fact that everyone ignored him was a plus. Life in the elemental nations was annoying, to tell the truth, having to put up with stupid bounty hunters and listen to townspeople scream about him walking into their town. Besides, their technology was amazing. Why, better than spring, snow country. Good thing he had his mask on, or else people would have known what his face looked like when he stopped a spending car with a curb stomp to the front bumper. After changing his clothing, curiosity of a street thug who saw the 15-year-old as an easy target, and his looks, Naruto forged, conned, and tricked his way into citizenship under the name Alex, no last name. The woman who had helped with his paperwork told him that he needed to do to school, but had to take a test to see where he needed to go. He aced it with a little help from his shadow clones. His score was so high that the officials who watched him to make sure he didn't cheat were shocked to silence. He was then told that Gotham University would be best for him with such high scores. If the staff and students at the university weren't shocked to find a nearly 16-year-old taking classes, the fact that he was on his way to getting master's degrees for not one, but 4 different areas floored them. Upon hearing about him, they expected him to be a short, nerdy little kid with thick glasses and other little stereotypes. Much to their shock, he was not only smart as the rumors said, but a fighter as well. Something that was proven when an upperclassman tried to take his stuff and push him around. If it wasn't for the fact that it was in self-defense, Naruto could have been arrested for assault or even attempted murder. It only took a year for him to complete all the required work to get a master's in botany, chemical, and mechanical engineering. He was often accused of cheating and sleeping with teachers for a good grade, which offended him. Why would he cheat? His clones studied for him and sent the information to him once they dispelled. The teacher thing was also false. Why would he need to sleep with his female teachers when he was already making straight A's? How the hell did that get out in the first place? It was a one-time thing with his professor, Mrs. It didn't matter anyway, he still graduated with all his degrees. He had changed fro the dark and hateful person he once was and developed a kinder, more gentle side. He even developed a sense of humor. Walking down through the park with a newspaper in hand reading, the Joker escapes on the front. Naruto gave a small smile as the sun warmed the air around him. He had graduated a few weeks before and was enjoying his time off, letting the job offers pile up. He had been in the papers as the genius kid because of his scores and found it annoying that his mail was always full with letters from people who wanted to hire him. His ears picked up the sound of crying and he looked over to see an old man sitting on a bench in the park crying. Feeling kind, Naruto walked up to him and asked, "What's wrong?" The old man cried, "I can't remember where I live." Twitching, Naruto spun on his heel and walked away, leaving the old man, who chuckled. "Works every time. Now time to go see my baby," the old man said before getting knocked in the head with a kickball. Blinking, he looked around. "Where am I?" Naruto appeared in his apartment accompanied by a whirl of smoke. It was small but cozy, just right for him. Throwing himself on his couch, Naruto blindly groped the cushions and found the TV remote. He really didn't want to get a normal job. It was just so boring to lead a normal life. He needed a quick and easy way to make money. Suddenly the TV said something about millions of dollars, making him sit up. To raise $1 million again this year. Naruto hummed, before unleashing a twisted smirk for the first time in what felt like ages. Around 9 o'clock at night, Naruto casually walked towards the large building where the fundraiser was being held. His face and hair was back to its normal way instead of being a paler shade of blonde. Behind him, a pair of transformed clones followed him carrying automatic weapons stolen from street thugs. If one was to look carefully, they would notice a few figures leaping through from rooftop to rooftop behind him. Naruto took a second to question his sanity for robbing a building full of police but shrugged the thoughts away. Arriving, he ordered his clones to hide as he walked in, quickly transforming his jeans and leather coat into suit and tie while no one was looking. Invitation? Naruto turned and saw a large officer looking at him with a raised brow. Ah! Reaching into his pocket, he smiled and punched him with his other fist, sending the guy to the floor where one of his clones hid him. The party sucked. Full of rich snobs, lame music, and even lamer cops. Walking up the stage, Naruto took a metal instrument case and slammed it over a musician's head, knocking him out and off the stage, bringing the party to a screeching halt. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen," he called into the microphone as the rest of the band fled. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki and I shall be robbing you today." "Is this some sort of joke?" cried one of the cops. "Get out of here, brat." "Oh, I assure you this is no joke," Naruto says, snapping his fingers, signaling his clone thugs to appear, pointing their guns and blades at them. "Now if you will bever your money and other valuables, I'll make this as quick as possible. Besides, I forgot my gun at home." One of the officers who actually brought his gun reached for it only to have a bullet lodge itself in his shoulder. Dropping his piece, the closet clone took it and pulled it apart, throwing the parts in different directions. "Not to brighter you," Naruto asked with a grin, "I said that I didn't have a gun on me. These wonderful henchmen do, dumbass." The clones split, one group running to the area holding the donations, and another smaller one taking all the valuables. Naruto started laughing until many cocking sounds reached his ears. "Oh dear," he said, finding almost every cop had in fact brought a backup gun just in case and was now aiming them at him and his crew. Slowly holding his hands in the air, Naruto laughed nervously. He. "Ah well, what happened was. Kid, you're under arrest." Naruto's nervous smile turned to a devious smirk, before he threw his hands out towards the police officers, making them tense. Suddenly the ground cracked and roots and vines shot from the holes, ensnaring the shocked men and women. "To tell the truth, I really did expected you all to leave your guns at home," Naruto said with a shrug, watching as ring, wallets, purses, and other valuable jewelry were taken from the struggling Cowd. One of the other clones dispelled and he learned that they had sealed all the money into a scroll and it would be waiting for him at his apartment. Well, I had a blast with you all today and must be going. Let's do this again sometime, he called before walking away with his hands in his pocket. Gotham Globe. Police fundraiser robbed. Last night a group of armed assailants stormed the annual police fundraiser and robbed well over $1 million in unmarked bills and jewelry. The group was led by a single male with powers similar to that of the notorious supervillain known as Poison Ivy. One officer was shot in an attempt to pull his weapon but none were killed. Reports described him as an athletic blonde teenager with spiky hair and bright blue eyes who went by the name of Naruto Uzumaki. The police are still looking for the assailant and are offering a reward for any information leading to an arrest. The name Naruto was on everyone's lips, talking about how he could pull off something so downright stupid as rob a bunch of police. A few even saw him as a second Joker. In Toxic Acres, a sexy redhead read over the paper with an bored expression while drinking beet juice. Her eyes widened slightly at the amount of cash he had stolen, then spat out her juice as she saw that he had powers like hers. "Geez, Red," Harley said, blinking as her friend's drink dripped from her face. "What's gotten into you?" "Sorry, Harley, but we have someone to hunt down," the redhead said, holding up the paper. "Wow, a kid with powers like yours," Harley murmured. "Family?" "Not that I know of. Get dressed, we have a bird to see about a fish." I find that ironic because Naruto means fish cake. So penguin. Do we have a deal? The short bird-like man frantically nodded. Yes, we have a deal," he yelled, flailing his arms around. The blonde grinned. "Good, because I'd hate to find out just how flightless you penguins really are," Naruto said with a smile. He had arrived at the Iceberg Lounge and found the redeemed criminal to sell all his stolen jewelry, but the penguin wouldn't give him a good deal, so Naruto took him by the shirt and teleported to the roof where he was dangled over the edge. Setting him back down on the roof, Naruto once again teleported them both back to Penguin's office where the bird-like man had his henchmen gather the correct amount of cash. "You didn't have to take it that far, Mr. Uzumaki," Penguin said, sitting at his desk and fixing his shirt. Naruto cocked his head to the side and gave him a blank stare as if saying, "Bull. I was quite surprised when I found you sitting at my desk. How you got past my guards is a mystery. For a second I thought you were Batman." Naruto snorted and crossed his arms. "Batman's got nothing on my skills," he said with an icy tone. "He's just some masked fool with access to some advanced tech. I, on the other hand, could do everything he does with only the clothing on my back." Penguin felt a shiver run down his back. He didn't know what was scarier, another Batman doing things without any gadgets or the fact that he believed him. Naruto saw the look and grinned, showing off sharpened fangs while he forced his eyes to change into the ones Kyuubi always had for just a moment. "What's the matter?" he asked with a raised brow and bored look. Penguin blinked and rubbed his eyes. Was he seeing things? For a second, he could have sworn that his eyes had changed into silted red ones. Before he could utter a word, his workers walked back in carrying a large metal briefcase which was sat on his desk. "Here you go, boss, 55 grand. The largest one spoke, opening it. The short pudgy man leafed through the stacks and nodded. "That will be all," he murmured, dismissing them before turning his attention back to Naruto. "Full price, $50,000 for all the jewels and gold you brought me, and 5 for my rudeness earlier." Naruto looked at the cash and nodded. "No problem, and sorry for dangling you off the roof. I've been having a lot of stress lately and sort of lost my cool." Closing the case, Naruto took it and spun on his heel, disappearing in a whirl of leaves. Penguin let out a long sigh. He had just met the newest edition of Gotham City's supercriminals and nearly ended up a smear on the road for underestimating his intelligence. But he was surprised by Uzumaki's personality. He wasn't hateful, mean, sadistic, or anything, almost kind. He knew that he had gotten off easy compared to those cops from that fundraiser, and they hadn't done a thing to Naruto, and yet he had tried to pay him a fraction of the value that all those jewels were worth. "Ah, boss?" his head henchman said, sticking his head through the door. Yes, what is it?" The man glanced behind him. "You got visitors, it's..." The large man yells as he is sent through the door and rolls to a stop. "Hiya, Penguin." An annoyingly bubbly voice yells, making him pale in color. "Harley, Calm down, another seductive voice said. Penguin cursed his luck as the queens of crime walked in and smirked at him. Hello Penguin. Ivy started with a smirk, we need to talk. Naruto sat across from his TV with his money stacked in a pile on the coffee table in front of him. The TV played some nature documentary that he really wasn't paying attention to while he thought of how to spend his cash. Henchmen weren't really needed since shadow clones made it possible to create an army enough to start a small war. But they knew what he did, so they really couldn't give him a second opinion. A hideout was a possibility, since people would start snooping around when Alex doesn't return and then find Naruto Uzumaki living in his place. So was buying out businesses. There was this nice bar out on the docks called Stacked Deck. That was for sale. A few upgrades to the decor and it would be a lot more popular. Lastly, stocks were an option better left for later down the road. Flipping through one of the stacks, Naruto reached for his cell phone and dialed a number. He had a bar to acquire and modernize. Yeah, I'm calling about the ad you put in the papers about selling your bar. Yeah, full price, up front. The catch is, I'll keep the place from sinking even further in debt, but you continue to work there for me since I'm too busy to do so myself. After a few minutes Naruto smirked and snapped the phone shut. Rough night of crime fighting, sir? Bruce Wayne stood in only a towel looking in his mirror as his friend and butler, Alfred, walked in holding a robe. Very. I've been trying to find out anything I could about this kid Naruto, he said with a fetid. A kid just walks into the party with a group of thugs and robs them blind without anyone noticing until it was too late. Surely someone had noticed, the aged butler intoned, folding the robe with practiced ease. Bruce frowned. Well, the guy checking for invitations was found tied to the rafters. He said that a kid matching Uzumaki's description walked in and knocked him out when he asked for an invitation. Well, sir, some of the guests at that party were wearing custom jewelry. Bruce looked up. Yeah, but... Oh, I get it. He wouldn't be able to just sell it off to some pawn shop or jeweler without it being checked, so he'd have to sell it to someone who could get rid of it easier. Exactly, Master Wayne. From previous encounters, I believe that the Penguin would be your best lead. Even though he has stopped dealing with the black market, he still may know someone else. Harley. Two large men winced at the volume of the voice and looked towards the source but only saw a pair of purple pants fly out the door. They both wore brown suits with bow ties. The first played cards with himself and the other was reading the paper. This place is going to blinking blue blazes, the voice said again before the door was kicked open. From the room a very well-known man walked out. His skin was snow white, his hair black with a green tint. His lips were red and twisted into a large grin, sometimes showing off his large yellow teeth. He was dressed in a light blue tank top and purple boxers with yellow polka dots. It was the Joker. Has anyone seen my socks? He asked, throwing his arms up in the air and walking towards them. Harley. Walking past a pair of hyenas, they jumped at him against their chains, snarling and snapping, making him leap away with a look of disbelief. They snapped at me, he said, turning towards his henchman. What's going on, Rock? The place is a mess. No one's fed the hyenas, and I can't find my socks. Where's Harley? Rock cringed behind his paper. Why, you canned her boss, remember? The Joker shrugged. So, she's always come back before, he stated with a frown. Gee, I guess you haven't seen the papers then, Rock said, closing said object. The Joker frowned. Papers? He said, snatching them away and making Rock flinch away. What are you babbling about? He looked at the front page and saw a picture of Harley and Poison Ivy running away with pearl necklaces in hand with the words, New Queens of Crime at the top, and another picture below telling about the police fundraiser getting robbed, which he ignored for the moment. Outside the building, Joker's scream of disbelief echoed all down the city street and even caused the sign at the front of the building to fall. A week passed without any word or news on Gotham's newest villain. It was like he had just disappeared. But on a sadder note, Gotham's brightest youth, a 16-year-old by the name of Alex, had supposedly died when his apartment exploded. Gotham University mourned the loss of their best student, and many of the students and teachers cried openly at the news. Strangely enough, almost all of them were cute and sexy females. Unknown to everyone else, Alex, or better yet, Naruto, did not die in the explosion since he was across town when the timer went off. He needed his fake identity to disappear so the cops wouldn't start looking for him once he stopped transforming. He had been quite the busy bee, buying supplies and other equipment for his soon-to-be hideout, a warehouse near an abandoned carnival. His clones had worked tirelessly cleaning and setting everything up, repairing walls and other little jobs to get the place running again. It seemed that the warehouse had been used to store the equipment, including his personal favorite, a tennis ball launcher that his clones had fixed to look like a large gun. Oh, and he even started his first project. It was more of an expensive hobby, but hey, he wasn't paying for it. He knew that it was stupid for him to try, but he had gotten the idea for a weapon or some kind of device that enhanced one's power by tenfold. Imagine, the power of 10 Kyubis all in one being. But there was one problem: he couldn't use the planet's natural energy because he'd kill it, something that he wanted to avoid for now. Too bad that was out of reach for now. He still needed to find a way to magnify seemingly endless amounts of power. So to pass the time, he worked with plant manipulation and fusing them with his other elemental powers. The first was he didn't know if it counted as a success or not, but he infused a large Venus flytrap with more Earth chakra and ended up having to dodge a barge of small rocks that the plant had shot at him before realizing that it was attacking its creator, or father. Out of the experience, he figured that was why Poison Ivy talked to the plants and called herself their mother. The plants could understand and looked to them as caregivers. Like a child would their parents. He did the same with a vine and felt it gently wrap around him, giving off the feeling of love and affection. They didn't talk to him, but the feelings were there. He was, in essence, their father. Or to at least the ones he grew and manipulated. If left untouched, he never felt anything from them. The second was scary but nonetheless a failure. A vine with some added ice chakra caused it to turn into a jagged, razor-sharp line but shattered if forced to grow or move. Fire chakra was a no-go for obvious reasons. Wind didn't do anything, and the other elements were useless. A small vine wrapped around his finger like a child would an adult, making him smile as he sat on a wooden crate. The vines had an interesting ability to disappear back into the ground and wait for him here at the hideout as not to be harmed by any punks or hobos looking for a place to hang out or rob. They also would protect his home for him when the need arise. "Such an amazing little plant, aren't you?" he asked the vine as it squeezed lightly. One of his clones walked up to him holding a small bag filled with white powder. "Boss, are you sure it's a good idea to mess with this shit?" Naruto glanced over. "Okay, now I'm crazy," he mumbled. "Not only am I literally talking to myself but questioning myself too." With a small amount of his money, Naruto had bought a large amount of drugs to sell on the streets. At first he used clones but now had a small gang of whackjobs who somehow saw him messing around with his powers and for some strange reason, saw him as a god. As strange as it was, Naruto couldn't deny that having a small group of men and women worshipping him and doing whatever he said was fun. And not only did they do whatever he said without complaint, they were extremely loyal too. In only a week, they were already a high-priority gang to the police. Funny that a few fireballs, lightning strikes, earth spikes, and transformations could inspire such unstable human minds. Back at the elemental nations, people would say that it was only impressive then walk away. Now that I think about it, I have to meet them later. This gang is becoming a nuisance, Commissioner. Only a week has passed and they continue to cause nothing but trouble. 3 people have been killed already. Commissioner Gordon groaned. "Calm down, detective, we've already got a lead on them," and the radio on his desk buzzed. "Sir, we're ready to breach at any moment, we're waiting on you for the okay," came the voice on the other end. Gordon took the radio in his hand. "Do it, I'll be there soon." Commissioner Gordon walked into a bar. Even though it sounded like the start of a bad joke, he was greeted by a group of young men and women with their hands cuffed behind their backs. Walking up to them, he wasn't shocked to find Batman standing in the shadows while his officers congratulated each other. "Their leader isn't here. I heard them saying that he was going to meet them," Batman said gruffly. Gordon frowned. "Any ideas on who the leader?" Women scoffed. "Wouldn't you like to know?" They ignored her. "Whoever it is will be here and we'll catch him off guard." This time a man laughed. "Yeah, right. Like you will catch him. No human will ever take down our lord." Batman frowned at the group. Most of them are escapees from the Joker's last escape at Arkham. All were a part of a religious cult that tried to kill innocent people and use them to summon their demon, God. "Really?" echoed another voice from the doorway. "Summon a demon? Now that's interesting." The SWAT teams quickly trained their guns on the shadowed person while Gordon and Batman watched with narrowed eyes, ready to act at any moment. Naruto had heard everything and was smirking at the irony of Batman's little speech. His little band of worshippers had tried to summon a demon as their god, and now here he was, probably the strongest demon out there. "Who are you?" Gordon called, hand on his pistol. Naruto chuckled and walked deeper into the shadows, using his powers to transform into other people. "You know, Commissioner." He started in a male voice before changing into a female voice that made Gordon freeze. "I never could fully understand you, Jim." The figure stepped to the side and into a flickering light, revealing a head of red, nearly orange shoulder-length hair and dull green eyes, not only making Gordon shake, but every cop in the room. There stood Sarah S. and Gordon, Jim's ex-partner and dead wife. Sarah?" Jim stuttered, "But, the Joker, he shot you. You're dead." "I know." A stream of blood fell down from her hairline just as the light flickered off, only to come back on to reveal an empty space. "Where'd she go?" was the first thing that came from the gathered people. Naruto stood back in his regular form up on the ceiling. He knew about Gordon's wife and how she died. He also knew of his affair and facts about many other crimes done around the city. They were the first thing he looked at during his free time at school. "Someone get these lights back on," a SWAT ordered, having cut the power beforehand to surprise the gang who have yet to be moved. After a few seconds, all the lights not connected to emergency power flickered on, illuminating the whole room. "Where'd she?" The speaking SWAT never finished as a boot impacted with the side of his head, sending him rolling across the ground. "You!" Gordon cried, pulling his police-issue pistol and aiming it at the criminal. Giving a mock bow, Naruto smirked to the gathered cops. "Naruto Uzumaki at your service," he said before looking at Batman. "Hello, Batman, nice to finally meet you." "Uzumaki," Batman growled, "you're under arrest, just come quietly." Naruto hummed, "Sorry, Bats. I don't feel like going to Arkham just yet. But I've heard many stories about you, mostly for your fighting ability, and I'll make you a bet. If you can beat me, I'll come along without a fight." "Deal." The masked hero narrowed his eyes. "Deal, but how'd I know you aren't lying?" Naruto grinned. "Bats, when I make a deal I always uphold my end. But we don't need you getting any backup from the police, so." Thick vines ripped through the wooden floor and wrapped around both the cops and gang members, just like at the fundraiser. Ignoring the cries of shock and pleads from his worshippers, Naruto popped his neck and prepared to fight the Dark Knight. "Tell me," Batman said, "how did you gain power over those plants?" Naruto shrugged. "I have power over the raw elements, combining them's not hard. Water and earth create wood. The trick is to be able to draw on and force them to expand when the only source of water is in the air," he stated, not caring if Batman knew of his powers. Batman was at a loss for words. Power over the raw elements. That meant that this Naruto kid was even more dangerous than Joker or any other villain in the city. "So you can use more than one, and what did you do before?" he asked, trying to get more information. "I love messing with people, it's my kitsune nature." Naruto cleared his throat and got into a fighting stance. "But enough talk, have it you." Nursing a fat lip from Batman, Naruto forced his chakra to slowly heal it. He needed to learn his lesson not to get cocky. The punch he had gotten not only busted his bottom lip but shattered a tooth. But in retaliation, Naruto broke his wrist and crushed his middle finger. But one thing confused him. Batgirl? When did she get there? He had been beating the shit out of Batman, had never even noticed her. A vine grew out of the ground and worked its way up to him and caressed his lip, drawing in some of the blood that leaked out. "Thanks, Mother Hen," he muttered, only to wince as it poked right at the cut. "Ah, damn it. Not only has the main plant guarding his home been growing, but it's been blooming as well, brightening the place up with flowers. Pink ones." Much to his embarrassment. Besides that, the damn thing started taking care of him like he was an old man, fretting over his wounds, if any. "I feel like I'm forgetting something," Naruto muttered, sweat dropping as the plant scratched the side of his head. Bruce groaned as he bumped his newly bandaged hand against something for the 100th time that day. Dressed in his relaxation clothing, he flicked through the channels on his TV while sitting on his chair with a laptop beside him. "Sir, I've prepared you a light breakfast to go with your pain medication," Alfred said, walking over to his pouting employer, who wanted nothing more than to be out hunting that kid down. Bruce wasn't mad at the kid for breaking his wrist, in fact he enjoyed the fight. "Thanks Alfred," Bruce said, taking the plate. Alfred notices his laptop and motioned to it. "I see you've got your laptop connected to the mainframe. Looking through some old files?" "No, I'm adding one." "Ah, Naruto Uzumaki's, correct?" "Yeah." Alfred sighed. "It pains me to see a young man do such deeds. He doesn't even look like he's finished growing." "Indeed." Bruce turned to his laptop and studied the screen while he slowly ate his meal. Real name: Naruto Uzumaki. Alias: Fox. Gender: male. Age: 16 to 18. Height: 5 feet 11. Weight: unknown. Eye color: blue. Hair color: blonde. Occupation: professional criminal. Current status: at large. Powers: element manipulation, transformation, advanced healing, unknown. Skills: unknown. Details: Uzumaki is different from any other criminal in Gotham. He seems to only do things when he feels like it. That alone makes him extremely dangerous. Knows how to fight like a pro. I've yet to find any other details about him, but have learned that Ivy and Harley Quinn are still looking for him. Meaning that searching for him is a waste of time. If they haven't found him yet, I want. Saving his work, Bruce took his medication and allowed Alfred to take the plate up. "Sir, Ms. Barbara asked me to tell you that she would be taking your place for a while your wrist heals up." Bruce nodded and sighed again. "I'm bored, _. Wow, Red. This Naruto guy is amazing." Harley mused, reading the paper while sitting upside down on the couch. Ivy frowned. "He's hard to find too. I've seen some of his plants and they defy nature itself." She muttered aloud from her seat at the table. "What cha mean?" Harley asked, flipping around and staring at the redhead. Ivy sighed. "When I use plants I coax them into growing quickly using my blood as a medium. But when I saw his, they're just there. Fully grown and living. Those vines he used didn't grow, they were created." Harley just blinked, making Ivy groan. "I lost you, didn't I, Harl?" "Sure did, Red. Never mind." She groaned, massaging her forehead. "Penguin said that he sold the stolen jewelry and disappeared. Do you know anyone who might be able to help?" "Nope, not soul." Banging her head on the table, Ivy stared at the picture. "He's kinda cute," she thought. _. Once again Naruto disappeared from Gotham's radar, this time for 2 weeks. He really didn't do anything worth mentioning besides remember that he had forgotten his worshippers, the police, and heard about Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and the Joker being arrested in Toxic Aches. Ivy interested him. He heard that she was looking for him and he had a pretty good idea of what she wanted. If she wasn't locked up in Arkham, he'd go see her. Quinn did as well. When he looked or heard about her, he got that feeling of seeing a cute girl with the biggest, meanest jock in school. That feeling of wanting to help her. Then an idea hit him. Things were boring as hell in the city, so why not see what the prison life was like? It was something to do and may even amuse him for a while. Not to mention he would be able to talk to his fellow plant user. But he needed a good reason to get caught. Maybe that new gang who took Ivy and Harley's place would be a good choice. He already knew who was a part of the crew and they would flip if he offered to help. That puppet was pretty funny too. Scarface his name was. But first he had to find their hideout, and he just so happened to know that Rhino, the muscle of the crew, was at his new bar. Charles Daly, aka Rhino, named for his hulking size and a tattoo on his right arm, walked down the street with his hands in his pocket and a newspaper under his arm. He had just left the newly reopened bar on the docks, never noticing the figure standing above him, balanced on the overhanging sign. Naruto studied the large man below him. He had black hair and eyes, and wore a brown suit. From the looks of things, he deserved his name of Rhino, and if he got any bigger, they'd have to rename him after a tank. Jumping down in front of the hulking man, he grinned his foxy grin as Rhino jumped back, instantly recognizing him from the picture in the paper he had just been reading before leaving the bar. "Why you're Fox. Naruto Uzumaki," he said, pointing with a worried look on his face. "Look, I don't want any trouble." "Calm down, Charles Daly, or should I say Rhino. How's the gang?" Naruto asked, walking closer to the man. "Look please. Whatever we did to piss you off, we didn't mean it." Rhino started, only to stop as Naruto held up a hand. Looking at him with an annoyed look, Naruto lowered his hand. "I'm not out to get any you. More of a business proposition." You see, I'm in need of a few partners. The thugs and punks I use all seem to think the same things, and that gets annoying when I have to plan things, something I really don't enjoy doing. I've always been a do-it-kind guy, not a planner. I'm offering to lend my services to your crew and in return get a cut. Rhino was speechless at the offer. Here was one of the strongest supervillains offering to join their gang. It was almost too good to be true. Oh. I'd have to ask Mr. Scarface, he's the brains of the operation. I know, Naruto stated, I'll be in touch. Rhino gaped as the blonde in front of his turned and leapt over the two-story building beside them, clearing the building easily and disappearing into the night. Shaking out of his stupor, Rhino bolted down the docks and towards the hideout, once again failing to notice Naruto following him from the shadows. After following his large target through the city, Naruto watched as he walked into a small mannequin assembly building and jumped onto the roof where a skylight allowed him to look in. Sitting at a table was two men playing cards. One looked like a rat and the other had a slightly haunted look on his face. Both watched as Rhino frantically talked to a smaller, balding man wearing a stage suit and round reflective glasses. I got to see the boss, he heard Rhino say looking down at the frightened-looking man. He's sleeping, he said. He's not to be disturbed, the balding man stuttered. Rhino leaned forward and balled his fist. Hey man, it's important. I just met Fox and the boss will want to know what he told me. The two playing cards gaped, but the little man didn't react. I see. He started holding up one finger. I'll see what I can do. Naruto watched as the guy walked up a set of stairs and into a room where, after a minute of mumbled voices, the door opened to reveal the same balding man holding a puppet wearing mobster clothing and holding a miniature Thompson machine gun. This better be good, use mugs, Scarface said, making the blonde smirk and chuckle to himself. Puppets always amused him. Okay, talk Rhino. What's so important that I can't get a good night's sleep? I was leaving that new bar down at the docks and Fox met me. Rhino started loosening his tie nervously. He offered to help us pull our jobs in. Scarface cut him off. Fox? He asked. That Uzumaki guy. Now why would a guy like him offer to work for me? Well, he said that he hated planning things out and was more of a do-it guy, so he thought that since you're the best mind out there, he'd leave the planning to you, Rhino said. Scarface seemed to think about that for a while. This could be a good idea, boss, the haunted man said. He beat Batman in a fight, so if he ever came down on us, Fox could at least hold him off so we could escape. You's got a point, Muggsy. Scarface agreed. Well, Rhino, tell this Fox that I'll meet him and... Naruto used his power to appear soundlessly on top of a shelf near them, and sat there looking down on them. No need. He started, enjoying the looks of shock and disbelief they had. I've been here the whole time. You? Rhino yelled. How? Naruto snorted. Robbing a building full of police wasn't tough, so breaking into an abandoned building is a cakewalk, he said before flipping backwards off the high metal shelf and landing on his feet. It's nice to meet a fellow criminal who's not afraid to put anyone down for good, Scarface. The feeling mutual, Fox. But tell me, why do you want to join my gang? Naruto shrugged. Like Rhino said, I'd rather go along with the plan than be the one who plans it. Mine either have too many holes in it or are too complex. I see, the puppet said before giving what seemed to be a smirk. Let's see how's yous do with our next plan before we decide too much. The plan to rob the tracks during a horse race went off without a hitch. Naruto picked the locks to the power room and shut down part of the offices while the owner and 4 guards were walking down the halls where Rhino, Muggsy, and Rat, don't know his real name, attacked, knocking the guards out and taking the money bags. He then met up with them and led them a ways away until they found the area where a large vent would take them to the roof. Rhino used his body to knock a large hole in the wall and Naruto climbed the whole way up before lowering a rope and quickly hauling the 3 up, one at a time. The 4 then waited at the edge of the building until 12 o'clock, where a large truck filled with mattresses stopped below them and jumped from the top of the large building all the way down, landing softly on the mattress. Then all they had to do was wait until the truck took them back to the hideout and count the money. I got to say, Fox, Scarface started, you really live up to your reputation. Welcome to the gang. Naruto smirked behind the screen as he redressed in his new clothing. Gone was the cargo pants, boots, and hood. He was a part of a gang now, so he would look the part. Did you expect any different? He asked, stepping out from behind the thin screen to see the rest of the crew counting money. He was dressed in an expensive faded black suit with a white undershirt and black tie. Over it all he had on a long dark black suit coat that stopped below his knees. Muggsy whistled. Damn, that suit must have cost a fortune. Naruto shrugged. I wouldn't know, Gotham PD bought it for me. Everyone shared a laugh at the joke. Even Arnold Wesker and Scarface snickered as he was taken to his room to sleep. Naruto sat down at the table and took up the stack of money in front of him. Anyone up for a game? He asked, motioning to the stack of cards below. Days passed and Scarface's gang was almost the front page story. Tried to catch them, but she was always too late. Finally Bruce's wrist was fully healed up and he was now overlooking a boat filled with bars of platinum. He had bugged Arnold Wesker's bow tie one night and learned that not only were they about to hit a cruise ship loaded with platinum, but Naruto was helping. I'm not sure about this, Batman, Batgirl said beside him. Her costume was like his, but she had yellow gloves and boots and let her red hair wave in the wind. Batman nodded. Fox is helping with them, so it's a guarantee that he'll notice us before anyone else. He's probably there to oversee the job in case I show up. He'll never expect us both. Batgirl nodded. Okay, but I still don't like it. They both noticed a speedboat racing towards the target boat and with a glance and nod, both jumped into the bad boat and sped after them. Pulling up to the ship, Naruto took his coat off and placed it into the front seat. Rhino, take the nozzle, I'll turn the acid on, he said. Rhino nodded and braced himself as the sprayer unleashed a torrent of strong acid that quickly burned through the metal. After a few seconds, Naruto turned it off and watched as Rhino tried to push it in. Watch out, he ordered, moving past him. Punching the weakened metal, it dented and flew inside the ship, followed by a screaming Muggsy and Rhino. Damn it, Fox, you didn't have to throw me, Muggsy muttered, only to go wide-eyed at the sight of the shiny metal. Wow. Naruto leapt into the ship and crossed his arms as Rhino and Muggsy struggled to carry one bar at a time. He was waiting for Batman to show up, as he had sent a tip to police telling them where Scarface was. He already knew that Batman had bugged Arnold, so all he had to do was wait. Hey Fox, what's up with you? You seem a bit more test tonight, Rhino said as they had struck up a friendship. Naruto shrugged. I'm not sure, I've been feeling bad for a while now. I can't even control my powers that well. He lied, needing it to look like Batman caught him off guard while he was sick. Damn. Well, I hope you get better. If it wasn't for you, we'd have to be more careful because of the Batman. If he knew you was sick, we'd be in trouble, Muggsy said, handing a bar to Rat. Ain't that the truth? Rat laughed, only to feel a tap on his shoulder. What the? Rhino laughed and turned back to the hole, only to gasp as the Batman drop-kicked him into Naruto, who landed painfully against the floor under the large man. Muggsy turned too and tried to attack Batman, only to be punched by Batgirl. Naruto groaned under Rhino, who quickly scrambled to get of him. Oh damn, I'm sorry Fox. He waved him off and pushed himself up. You grab Muggsy and get out of here, I'll hold the two bats off, Naruto whispered. Batman stood there with Batgirl by his side. You're all going down, he started, only to roll away as Naruto pulled a pistol from underneath his blazer and started shooting. Following Naruto's orders, Rhino took Muggsy, who was still dazed, and ran to the boat where Rat was groaning and took off, leaving Naruto behind with the two masked vigilantes. Hello Bats. How's the hand? Naruto asked, dropping the empty pistol and popping his knuckles. Naruto, just give up. You know that both of us will beat you in your weakened state, Batman called out from behind the stack of platinum. Naruto chuckled weakly. Maybe, but I'm not going down without a fight, he said, breathing heavy, showing that his healing powers were failing him. Batman peeked round the corner and saw the pistol laying on the ground. Motioning for Batgirl to stay put, he walked out from behind the pile and got ready to fight. Batgirl winced at the sound of their fight and looked around for something to stop the Fox. Even in his weakened state, she saw that he was still very tough and could take a punch that would knock anyone else out in one hit. A yell of pain reached her ears again, and she spun around to see Naruto holding Batman by the neck again, trying to choke him out like before. Once again, Bats, you fell for the same trick, Naruto said with sweat and blood pouring down his face. Having repressed all his demon chakra, he was basically a tough human. Batman choked and gagged as the blonde cut off his airway. His hands clawed at the blonde's arms and his feet flailed around, kicking and kneeing as hard as he could. Hey Blondie, you forget about me? Naruto turned around just as a metal bar slammed into his face, knocking him back as he tried to get to his feet. Holding his face, Naruto yelled in anger but gasped for breath as the girl drop-kicked him with enough force to knock him back into the stack of precious metal that started to wobble dangerously. No! The girl cried out as the tower toppled over. Naruto groaned to himself as the bars pelted and soon started crushing him. Allowing his demon's chakra to keep him alive, he faded in and out of consciousness thinking, "This better be worth it," as the two bats started to dig his out from under the platinum. Bruce frowned as he once again read over the article concerning the kid. Barbara Gordon, Jim Gordon's adopted daughter, watched with a small frown as he stared at the picture of that cute blonde boy all wrapped up in the bandages that she had with her at the time while handcuffed and being laid on a stretcher with multiple officers watching him, hands on their guns. "Bruce, I don't like the look on your face," she stated, crossing her arms and fixing the rich vigilante with a firm stare. "Something's not right, Barbara," Bruce said, motioning to the picture. "We questioned him before taking him to the police and he didn't seem to be in as bad a shape like he is in the picture." "Maybe he was still running on adrenaline," Barbara suggested. "I don't know," Bruce admitted while folding the paper and placing it on the table. The door opened up and Alfred walked in. "Sir, I came to remind you that you have a business meeting today," he said before turning to Barbara. "Good morning, Ms. Barbara." "Morning, Alfred." An armored police truck sped down the winding road to Arkham. Inside the cab sat a pair of heavily armed SWAT in body armor and holding automatic rifles. Both sat ridged and ready to jump at a moment's notice. Pulling up to the front gates, a voice over the intercom ordered them to stop. "What's your business here?" The driver let it out the open window. "Prisoner transport. Subject name Uzumaki," Naruto called loudly. "Ah, we've been expecting you. I'll buzz you through." All was silent for a moment until a loud buzz came from the gates, which slowly opened. In the back of the transport sat another pair of SWAT, both watching the snoozing figure leaning against the cab across from the doors. Naruto Uzumaki sat boredly against the wall with bloody bandages wrapped around his head and one of his eyes. The reason was because of a large gash he had gotten from a fallen metal bar back at the boat. The doctors brave enough to work on him had to stitch it up and bandage him since his healing factor was surprised. Naruto also received a broken left arm from the event, and even though he healed it, he kept the cast on to make them think he was slightly crippled. The truck slowed to a stop once again. The whole trip had been spent in tense silence as the SWAT had been too afraid to joke around like they normally would, even if the guy they were watching was injured. After a second, the doors were unlocked and opened, allowing the bright morning light to stream in the closed-in transport. Blinking the spots away, Naruto was led from the back of the truck and up a flight of stairs. Behind him was a pair of men in white uniforms, orderlies from Arkham sent to make sure he didn't act up once the police left. Reaching the top, he was taken into a room where a doctor met him. "Uzumaki Naruto. I am Dr. Joan Leland, the head doctor here at Arkham," the woman said while looking at him with something akin to pity in her eyes. Naruto studied the doctor up and down, something that made her shiver in both his uncovered eye, gazing at her like a fox would its prey or mate. Dr. Leland had short dark hair that stopped just above her jawline and wore a white hanabi to hold it in place. Her skin was tanned and gave her an exotic look. She wore black lipstick and a standard lab coat with a black skirt, shirt and matching heels. Joan returned the favor. He had been forced to change into jail clothing, which was gray sweats and a matching top, but he had foregone the shirt and wore a wife beater instead, showing off muscles and scars. While Joan was busy instinctively checking him out, Naruto's eyes silted while his face twisted into a smirk that would terrify even the Joker. Joan stopped and berated herself for staring. She was a doctor and he was a patient, criminal under her care. Meaning any relationship with him was impossible lest she turn out to be the next Harley Quinn. Clearing her throat just as the door opened, she said, "These are your new clothing, Mr. Uzumaki." Naruto turned slightly as a male and female nurse walked in, both carrying a plastic box. The first had a set of light gray, nearly white clothing and the second was empty within. "Uzumaki," written on it in marker. "If you will please remove your clothing and change into these. There is a screen over." Joan slowed to a stop as Naruto started changing in front of her and the two nurses. He had already removed his shirt and was about to drop his pants. "Mr. Uzumaki," the doctor yelled with a blush on her face, mostly from the sight of his wiry muscles and the fact that she couldn't see any underwear while he was unbuttoning. Naruto looked over. What? He asked, looking at her like he was stupid. The screen is over there, Joan stated, pointing to the side. Yes it is. He agreed, but I'm over here and so is the clothing I have to change into. She gave him a look that made both him and the other guy snicker. Fine. He muttered, throwing the shirt into the empty box and quickly removing his pants, showing that he indeed had on a pair of boxers, much to everyone's relief. I'll get dressed behind the screen. Taking the box, he grabbed the white uniform and disappeared behind the screen, emerging a minute later with the left sleeve rolled up to accommodate his cast. I like these, he stated, leaving the shirt unbuttoned. Dr. Leland was silent as she studied a large faded scar running down the left side of his chest and stomach. It was so faded that it had to be well over 10 years old. Had he been abused as a child? She wondered, having seen many cases that were caused by childhood neglect and abuse. Mental Evaluation Report. File 1. Patient name: Uzumaki, Naruto. Doctor name: Leland, Joan. Assistants: Vince, Jeffrey. Johnson, Sarah. XXXX patient was subjected to multiple screenings and a multitude of questions which would subtly point out what type of person he is. The test results returned stating that the patient is definitely more than we first thought. His IQ was impressive, well over average scores, may even be bordering on genius levels. With the questions we were able to deduce that he holds no love for those that don't earn his respect and are no more than pawns to him if they fail to meet his standards. When asked about the large scar running down the left side of his chest, the patient's demeanor instantly changed from calm and relatively friendly to cold and hostile. I feared that he would attempt to harm us, so we dropped the issue and asked about his childhood, gaining the same reaction. I then decided that asking about his past was too sore a subject for now and had the orderlies escort him to his new cell. I plan on finding some way to learn about his past because I'm sure that the answer to why he's doing what he does rests in his past. If I were to learn just what caused all this, I may be able to help him. Naruto kept any and all emotion from his face as he was led down the dark stone halls, passing multiple rooms with thick bulletproof glass doors separating them. He was slightly disappointed that these people were treated like sideshow attractions. That was until he saw one licking the glass, then he shrugged the feeling away. So you Fox, huh? Questioned the first orderly in a flat voice. I thought you'd look more dangerous. Naruto frowned at the weak jibe but nonetheless replied, tell me, if you saw a large muscle-headed thug following you around, what would you do? Call the police. Good. Now, if you saw a teenager following you around, what would you do? If he tried to attack me, I'd fight back. Exactly, you'd call the police on the first guy but fight someone you thought you could overpower. So when he pulls out a blade or gun and kills you, you'd be fucked. I would be the guy who you thought you could beat? Naruto said darkly, making him break out in a cold sweat. That was clever, Fox, another voice called out. Looking to the side, Naruto saw a man with short red hair and a calculating look in his eyes. And who might you be? Naruto asked, stopping and looking at the man. Oh, I'm Edward E. Nigma, otherwise known as the Riddler, but all that's behind me now. I'm a good person now thanks to the doctors. But you're quite a riddle all your own. I think it's suiting that you name yourself after one of Legend's most crafty and clever creatures. The Riddler said with a smile. Naruto smirked and chuckled. You amuse me, Enigma. I look forward to our next meeting, he said, turning and leaving the man in his cell. Watching the blonde leave, the Riddler grinned and started thinking of a way to outwit the Fox. Here's your cell, kid. The second orderly told him, pulling out a keycard and swiping it through the card reader. Naruto was impressed as the thick glass raised up into the wall to his new, temporary, living space. All that was there was a cot, toilet, and sink, all in a dull white color that was sure to drive him insane if he stared any longer. After a while, the doctors may allow you to furnish your cell depending on things like your behavior, and if you prove to be trustworthy, you may even be allowed to earn privileges by working with other patients around Arkham, doing things like woodworking, gardening, cleaning, and other little things that can help support the facility. The nicer man said. Naruto didn't see a problem with this one. Unlike the other, he kept his mouth shut and didn't antagonize the patients that may kill them. Taking a step in the box, Naruto heard the glass wall slide back down to the floor, closing him in. Okay. Now I'm getting bored, he thought, sitting on the cot and finding that his previous conceptions on Arkham life to be false. If things didn't liven up soon, he may have to escape and accidentally leave a few of the more exciting criminals the same window of opportunity. Knock knock knock. Naruto looked to the side where he was able to see into the cell across from his and saw a blonde girl with two pigtails waving wildly at him, trying to say something to her obviously soundproofed room, something that certain ones had on their cells. He blinked as she talked herself blue and gave her a look that said, WTF, making her, oh, and pull a large whiteboard from her bed. You're Fox, right? He read before nodding. The blonde girl erased the board and wrote, I'm Harley Quinn, nice to meet you, Foxy. Naruto's sweat dropped at the nickname, and stood up. Walking to the glass, he motioned for her to wait a second and took a deep breath before breathing on it, causing a light sheet of ice to form, making the girl gasp. It's nice to meet you too, Harley. I would like to talk more, but I'm tired and wish to sleep. I'm sure that you understand. He wrote with his finger on the glass, backwards so that the girl could read it. Without waiting for a reply, he turned and threw himself on the bed, yawning as his arm blocked out the already dim lights. Hey kid, wake up. Naruto yawned and opened his one eye to see the kinder orderly of the wall. What? He yawned, sitting up. Your session with Dr. Leland is in 5 minutes. Naruto spun himself around. Didn't I just get out of one? He asked, running a hand through his hair. The man looked at him strangely. You've been sleeping for a long time, nearly 24 hours. It's 9:30 in the morning. Damn, was Naruto's reply as he stood while the man opened the glass wall. Naruto followed him back down the hallways, noticing that many of the cells were empty. Patents are allowed to socialize with each other in the rec room, keeps them from going stir-crazy, was the answer to his unspoken question. Reaching the door to the observation room, Naruto found the doctor already waiting for him, alone. Mr. Uzumaki, Joan greeted. Dr. Leland. The orderly looked around. Miss, are you going this alone? Joan looked to the man and nodded. Yes, James the First. Now please. You have work to do, she said, waving him off and leaving no room for argument. James left without a word. Naruto looked around the room. It was dark like many other areas of Arkham, but one bright light brightened the middle, showing one large armchair and one of those therapy chairs the patients lay back on. Taking the patent chair while Joan took the armchair, Naruto started to relax. So Mr. Uzumaki, now that we are alone, I would like to ask about your scars, Joan asked in her doctor voice. Naruto chuckled softly. You're a smart girl, you know that? You know that I didn't want to talk about the faded scars across my body, so you worded to where it could mean physical or mental scars, he told her. It will make you feel better to get it off your chest. Too true. Too true. Naruto sighed. The two shared a tense silence before Naruto broke it. Well, when I was born, my father was a very beloved man around my hometown, a war hero with many enemies. But the day I was born he was killed and many blamed me for it. I grew up picked on in the orphanage while the workers did nothing to stop it. I was beaten, picked on. Many things. Joan quietly took notes and listened to the man in front of her, her heart going out to him. Finally, when I was 4, they kicked me out and I had to live on the streets until Sarutobi, my father's predecessor, found me and gave me an apartment. Sarutobi. Tell me about him, Joan interrupted while Naruto took a breath. Sarutobi was probably the closest thing I've ever had to family. He was like the mayor of the city until my father took his place, but when Dad died, he retook the title. Anyway, Sarutobi tried his best to protect me from those who wanted me to pay for killing my father. But he couldn't always watch me. Every October 10th, groups of townspeople would try to murder me. When I was 7, they caught me and tortured me until I went insane. Joan silently gasped and nearly dropped her stuff. That's where all my scars came from. But when I went insane, it was like I just snapped. The only thing I could remember was stabbing a bunch of people and tackling someone to the ground before beating them to death. I spent the next 4 years locked in a padded room until Sarutobi finally told them who my parents were. They were never told, so I wouldn't have to worry about assassins. Anyway, they quickly had me released and examined by specialists who had me relatively back to normal after a while. Naruto continued, watching for the corner of his eye as Joan quickly scribbled down notes. I was so pissed at the town for what they did to me that I had unlocked my family's bloodline and planned on using it to kill everyone. But Sarutobi came to my room before I left and pleaded with me to calm down. That's when he told me about my godparents, parents, and older sister. Minato Namikaze and Kushina Namikaze, my father and so-called mother. Mom blamed me as well and took my older sister before abandoning me. Joan had tears in her eyes. She was right, he was only an abandoned child who turned to crime just to service. She was so into listening and jotting down notes that she never stopped to think about when he said family bloodline. I was so pissed when I heard the Kushina was still alive along with my godfather and godmother that I went into a blind rage and started destroying anything I could. I fled and traveled around for a few years until I came here. That's it, the rest is history. Blinking away the tears and pushing away the shock, Joan flipped to the next page, prepared to continue. So tell me about yourself, Dr. Leland, Naruto said, scratching at his cast. Joan wasn't prepared for that blinked at the question. Well, it's really not that interesting. Naruto sat up and rubbed his bandaged eye before turning to her with a heartbreaker smile. I find it hard to believe that such a beautiful girl like yourself couldn't be interesting, he said, watching as her tanned cheeks reddened. Well, Pamela Lillian Elsley, better known as Poison Ivy, smiled to herself as she weeded one of Arkham's indoor gardens with a few guards watching over her and a couple other fellow inmates who shared a passion for gardening, though not as fanatically as her. Moving one of the small plants over to grab a weed, she carefully pulled it up, trying not to disturb the newly planted flower. Hey Red! Jumping. Ivy snatched the weed up and frantically checked to make sure the plant was fine, seeing as the flower was rare enough as it was. Finding nothing wrong, she whirled around and growled at the bubbly blonde walking up to her. Harley, you nearly made me kill this rare Nemathanthus flower, she growled, making Harley blink. A what flower? Ivy sighed. A Nemathanthus, black gold, flower, also referred to as the goldfish plant. The one I nearly ripped up when you yelled. Harley laughed nervously and rubbed the back of her head. Sorry, Red. It's okay, Harl, the flower wasn't disturbed too badly, Ivy assured. Now what is it? Oh, guess who I met? Harley asked with a large grin. Joker. No. Well yeah, Harley admitted, but yesterday when I was in trouble for knocking the Riddler over the head with a chair, Fox was put into the cell across from mine. Ivy's eyes widened. Really? Yeah, and he used ice powers to write on the glass since my cell is soundproofed, Harley said quietly as not to alert the guards. He can still use his powers. Ones that the guards and doctors don't know about. Harley nodded wildly at her question. Then why hasn't he escaped yet? I don't know, but he said that he'd like to talk to me later, so maybe you can ask him when they let him out for some exercise, Harley said in a surprising show of intelligence. Naruto untied her hands and allowed her to slap him. That was for not warning me, she said with a smile before they both got dressed. I look forward to our next session. Oh, and I see about getting you some stuff for your cell and let you pay me back with. Well, you get the idea, hun. I'd like that, babe, but I have my wallet in my other pants. Could you be a dear and use that? Naruto said with a smile as the orderly was called in. James, could you get Naruto the book of things that he can buy for his room after you take him back? Joan asked using her professional tone. Of course, doctor. Naruto made his way back to the cell and looked around his padded room with a frown, glad that he would soon be able to at least get something other than white in his room. Hey. James, right? I need to go to the bathroom, and since they're turned off to save money while everyone's gone. Naruto spoke before the wall could be shut. James looked at him for a second. Okay, follow me. The small bathrooms were being cleaned, so James had to lead Naruto to the one near the rec room. Please behave, Mr. Uzumaki. I'm trusting you enough to go alone. Nodding to James, Naruto went in and heard whistling, a childish tune that he had heard from that cartoon called Looney Tunes. He ignored it and walked up to a urinal and did his business. 2 shakes later, he went to the sink and started washing his hands. Well, what do we have here? Naruto and saw the clown prince of crime grinning at him. 2 more stall doors opened and from the first a large green man covered in scales walked out wearing only a pair of white pants, seeing as his chest was so heavily muscled, watching him with a frown. The third was probably the most normal of all 3. He was scrawny and had bright messy orange hair, but like the green one, he was glaring at him with a frown. If it isn't to one who let bats live, Joker said, narrowing his eyes, and the one that people are saying that's better than me. Naruto narrowed his eyes in the mirror and watched as the scaly man clenched his fists and the scrawny one pull out a sharpened toothbrush. It's all your fault that Batman caught me. If you had just killed him, he wouldn't have been able to catch me while I was trying to fill the city's water supply with my fear toxin and lock me back up here. The orange-haired man seethed. Yeah. I've been trying to kill him and you just let him off. That's not right, snarled Scales. Joker held up a hand to stop them from jumping just yet, and you're taking my place as numero uno around here. And we can't have that, right, Croc? Right. Naruto turned the water off, and watched as the clown pulled out his own shiv. I'm going to give you till the count of 3. 1. Joker laughed. Get a load of this. 2. He think he can beat us all. Croc stated with a toothy grin. 3. Scarecrow lunged at Naruto, swinging his shank. Naruto spun around and caught his arm before taking the sharpened brush for his hand and stabbing him in the shoulder. Dropping the yelling man, Naruto leaned back as a large scaly arm flew past his face and slammed into the mirror, shattering it. Sidestepping, ducking, and slapping Killer Croc's punches aside, Naruto leapt up and snap-kicked the creature in the jaw, sending it flying into the clown. Naruto disappeared and grabbed Joker by the foot before slinging him around, causing his head to hit 2 sinks in the urinal before finally slamming into the wall. Watching as the 3 moaned and groaned, he frowned. Deliver a message. He started walking over to the Joker. Tell anyone who's got a grudge against me to come and get me if they want, but I promise, I will break them. The last thing Joker saw was the bottom of his shoe as it stomped down on his face. The door swung open. What's going on? Here, the guard yelled, stopping as he saw Naruto standing over the clown prince of crime. Just business, Naruto smirked before walking past the stunned man whose fellow guards took a step away as he came close. Take me away, he said to James, who slowly nodded. Maybe prison life wouldn't be that bad. Naruto stared at the man with unnerving eyes as he listened to him pitch some deal to him. He was some military general by the looks of it, with the green uniform and helmet with a single star on the front. Naruto could tell that despite coming off as a hard ass, General Vreeland was actually a big softy. Naruto had been very busy the past month, besides spending time in solitary confinement for beating the shit out of the Joker, Scarecrow, and Killer Croc. He had finally met the floral seductress, Poison Ivy, and struck up an interesting alliance with each other to aid the other if needed. They normally talked about different kinds of plants and ways to better help their growth, but seeing as she had a doctorate in botany, he had a master's, she usually had to explain some of the more complex things. He had also gotten the chance to talk with Harley Quinn, even though she tried to knock him over the head for kicking one of her puddin's teeth in at first. Flashback. Naruto walked outside in the courtyard whistling a small tune. He had just finished lunch, and since he was such a good boy, they allowed him to roam outside with the others. Looking around, he was surprised that no guards were around and began to feel that strange, oh shirt, this isn't right, feeling down in the pit of his stomach. A soft growl reached his ears and he spun around just in time to see a familiar blue-eyed blonde girl raise a nightstick over her head, just about to bring it down. I'll get you for hurting my puddin', she seethed. Naruto easily sidestepped swing after swing as the girl lunged at him time after time. The fact that she wasn't tired surprised him, almost as much as the fact that he could feel the wind coming off of the attacks. Stay still so I can hit you, Harley nearly screamed. Thunk, she blinked as the blonde male caught her weapon with one hand then grasped her neck with the other. He wasn't choking her or harming her in any way, but it still scared her. You need to calm the fuck down, Naruto said coolly, pushing her back lightly. Your so-called puddin' attacked me first, just like you are now, so I kicked his teeth in. If you continue to attack me as well, I will do the same to your pretty face. Harley looked at him with fear and awe in her eyes. Even Mr. J couldn't sound as cool and evil as Naruto did just then. Flashback end. In the end, Harley had gained a friend in her fellow blonde. Naruto had given her his number to call if she was ever in trouble and needed help when they got out. That touched Harley's heart since she really didn't have that many people to count on, and she promised that she'd always back him up if he needed it, in a rather comical way too. When the guards finally came around, they saw Naruto holding Harley like a bride while she held onto his neck with a large smile on her face. Besides that, Naruto had been hounded by letters from not only the newspaper woman wanting an interview, but some other TV reporter named Summer or something. Every time the people would deliver his mail, they would tell him how many they had and walk off, already knowing to put them in a box with his personal stuff. Joan had also kept her word and had gotten him a few things for his room. The very first thing he ordered was a shelf, armchair, and some books to pass the time. The most recent thing to happen to him in prison, as weird as that sounded, was that the military had offered him a way out of Arkham. Actually, that was still going on. You see, Uzumaki, we believe that your skills would greatly benefit this already great nation, and I wish to offer you a deal. We need a person that we could send into hostile areas and do jobs for us. The general said, standing with his hands behind his back. In return for doing these jobs, I'll have your record wiped clean. Naruto didn't react right away. Tell me, why would you so blindly trust an individual such as myself around other soldiers or near weapons that I could steal? The general wasn't even fazed. I've read about what you claim to be, a kitsune or sprit fox, so your word would be binding like a contract. Besides, you're a mercenary, being locked up in here isn't making you money. Naruto smirked. Ah, ain't that the truth, he stated. So are you interested? Naruto's eyes flashed. Let me get this straight, you want me to work for the government and risk my own ass, just to get out of Arkham? No pay at all. What could be more valuable than freedom? The general said with pride. Naruto scowled. A fucking stack of hundreds maybe. I'm a mercenary if you haven't noticed, not a damn Boy Scout. Besides, freedom could easily be fought for. That made the general frown. Fine. I can see that you're no different from any other mercenary. I've been authorized to offer you $75,000 and the weaponry to complete your job, he said unhappily. Fine, but before I sign any contract, you have to give me the information about what I'm doing and where I'm going. Naruto said, face void of any emotion. The general called in one of his own men who brought a folder with him. Captain, explain the situation. Our allies over in South Africa have gotten themselves in deep trouble. The government we've been aiding has been weakened and now rival fractions have been fighting for control. Sending soldiers over isn't possible due to the treaty and the UN POW'd to fire their weapons unless fired upon. We need a discreet asset to go in and topple both fractions so our friends can rebuild their government. I assume that I'd basically be on my own once I arrive, correct? The two glanced at each other and nodded. Well, since they're fighting over there, airports wouldn't be operating for fear of being shot down. Naruto continued. The captain nodded. Yes, we are aware of that, so we've arranged plane to fly you over the target area to do a halo jump, well above any radar. And my equipment? You will be supplied with gear untraceable to the US and will be allowed to choose from our armory. The hardware there haven't been registered yet, so the possibility of tracing them are impossible. One last thing. Is there any certain way you want me to do this, or is it up to me? As long as the job is done and none of the UN or government is harmed, you are free to do as you see fit, the general said. The grin on Naruto's face told it all. They had made a mistake. Gotham Globe. Fox released only over a month in Arkham. Naruto Uzumaki was released from Arkham only to once again disappear. When questioned, doctors and staff said that he had been visited by an army general and was later released on government order. We were unable to get a statement from the mayor or any other government officials, so little is known about the man. A deeper investigation has found that Uzumaki's criminal record had been wiped clean. Commissioner Gordon made a statement to us that Uzumaki had struck a deal with the government but refused to explain. Bruce frowned darkly as Barbara read the paper aloud to him while he worked on soldering wires together in his new tracking device. There's justice for you, she muttered. Who knows, maybe he'll stop now that he's spent time in Arkham. The sound of Bruce crushing the device in his hand made her flinch. People just don't change, he said, dropping the destroyed tracker. What's eating you? She asked. You didn't seem this upset about him before. Heck, you seem to enjoy fighting him. An alarm sounded. Scarecrows escaped Arkham, he stated, fixing his costume. Barbara sighed and followed him to the Batmobile, annoyed at his rudeness. The roar of the plane was all he could hear. Only 2 days ago he had been sitting in his cell reading a book on history, and now he was sitting on a large transport plane somewhere over southern Africa. His mission was easy: destroy 2 rebel bases. He had done harder things before, considering he destroyed his old world. He hadn't used all his power at once before, and it was making him lazy to have all that power but no challenge. Everything came easy to him. He was insanely strong, controlled all the elements, immortal, super healing. Hell, he probably had power that he didn't know about. But he still had his bad points. For one, he was slightly greedy, a fact that was noticeable when he not only took all the weapons and ammo from the armory and sealed them all away, but took a shitload of explosives, RPGs, missile launchers, and even contemplated on stealing a tank. Something he would have done if it wasn't for his ceiling scrolls being too small. Naruto didn't expect this to take too long, maybe a day or two, a week at most. When he finished, he would be forced to open a demon's gate to travel back to Gotham since the military wouldn't be bringing him home. Approaching target zone, screamed one of the airmen. Standing up from his seat, Naruto walked out of the shadows dressed in a black army uniform without any patches or emblems. Over it all he had equipment vest, parachute, and jump gear. Over his face was a helmet attached to a small oxygen tank since the air would be too thin while he was free falling and the force would snap his neck back from the force. A small red light flashed next to him while the man opened the large rear door, revealing the dark cloudy night sky below them. "Get ready," he called just before the light flashed green. "Damn me and my fucking lust for money," Naruto thought before leaping out the plane. He just could make out the sound of the wind rushing past his head as he shot through a cloud. A small light flickered below him on the ground. Compared to the size of it and just how far he was up in the sky, he figured that it had to be some large bonfire. Using his power over the air currents, he slowed himself down and channeled chakra into his eyes so that he could see what was on the ground. There was multiple men wearing yellow bandanas dancing around and drinking, all armed with AKs and pistols. From the army files he had stolen, yellow bandanas were used to identify the UFLL, one of the fractions he was to destroy. He didn't even bother with his parachute. The ground came closer and closer until he flipped around in the air and landed on his feet, right in the burning pile of wood, causing it to explode and leave a crater under his feet. As the burning pile exploded outwards, many of the soldiers dropped what they were doing and pulled out their guns. I know it's in Africa and the language barrier between Naruto and them is great, so I've decided that the whole world will speak a single language. My God, one said as a dark figure started walking out of the flames. Naruto had ripped off his helmet and was now staring out at them with glowing crimson eyes, his anger and power rising with each second. One man opened fire, causing the rest to follow suit. Naruto's uniform was ripped to shreds and blood flew everywhere as the hot metal ripped through his flesh and bones. Soon enough clicks echoed all around as the weapons ran dry, the shell casings covering the ground. He. Naruto laughed softly. Ha ha ah ha ha ha. Many dropped their weapons in absolute fear as the blood-soaked young man laughed darkly, throwing his head back and flexing his hands like claws. Shortly after, he started grunting in discomfort, and to their morbid fascination, hundreds of small bulges started running across his skin, down his arms towards his closed fists. Naruto held up both hands and opened them, allowing all the warm lead that burrowed inside his body to trickle out his hand and onto the ground. "What are you?" questioned one in fear and awe at the sickening sight of all their bullets coursing through his body. Just before Naruto drew his own weapons, a custom burst-fire Glock and a military machete, his pupils silted and eye pulsed a deeper shade of red, a demon. Streaks of black, yellow, and sliver filled the small grassland village. Gunfire echoed around for all to hear. For the women and children able to watch, it was like seeing the men who tortured them get cut to pieces by a ghost, or have 3 holes appear in vital areas of their bodies. One by one they dropped like flies, both the UFLL soldiers and the mercenaries working for them. African, American, British, Scottish, it didn't matter, they all fell to the demon's blade or bullets. The dying flames glowed dimly, casting long shadows across the village. Blood and bodies littered the roads, faces contorted into silent painful wails or cries. Naruto turned to the cages, making his glowing red eyes leave a faint after image. Walking towards them, he stabbed his blade into a wooden table and reloaded his pistol. The women started to panic as he raised the pistol towards the children and pleaded with him not to shoot. Bang! The lock holding the gates closed fell to the ground, kicking up a small dust cloud. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief as they realized what was happening. Another shot blew the next lock off, freeing the women. Children ran towards their mothers who cried and sobbed in happiness and relief at being safe. One of the older women turned to their savior. "How can we ever repay?" She stopped as she saw that the blonde foreigner was a long ways down the road. The only thing left behind was his blood-covered blade stuck into a UFLL poster on the table. Naruto spent 3 were spent preparing and the 4th was when he destroyed both bases at the same time by setting a shitload of his stolen explosives in both buildings. The last day he spent gathering up shipments of uncut diamonds, once again thanks to his greed. He had missed a lot of them but it really didn't matter that much to him. Right now he had enough to fill a small briefcase which meant he could probably buy out a casino and everything in it. His time was up in this great land full of rich culture and wonderful heritage. Who was he kidding? The whole place sucked. It was hot as hell. People fought all over the place. Bugs big enough to rob you swarmed around at night, and he couldn't even sleep without hearing a gun go off. Dressed in a colorful dashiki, Naruto opened a swirling white portal with his demon chakra and leapt through, glad to get the fuck back to Gotham. Harlan Quinzel, I'm proud to say that you are ready to re-enter society, Dr. Leland said proudly. Yeah. Harley screamed leaping into the air, yippee. She did a little jig and froze before turning back to the doctor with a nervous smile. Sorry. It's quite all right, Joan said with a smile. You should be very proud of yourself. It's only natural to be excited. Joan stood up and led Harley towards the door where screaming could be heard. Steeping into the hall they found Batman and Batgirl carrying Scarecrow down the hallways. Put me down. I'm the patron of fear. Harley waved. Hi Dr. Crane. Crane instantly calmed down and smiled as he was grabbed by a pair of large orderlies. Hello child. He greeted before returning to kicking and screaming. I'm the Scarecrow. Put me down, I demand it. The 4 watched for a second until Batman broke the silence. I hear you're getting out, he stated raising his hand. Harley flinched, preparing to be hit but realized that he was waiting to shake her hand. Yeah so what, she said taking his hand and shaking it. She tried to pull away but Batman held strong. Don't mess this chance up, he said, releasing her hand and turning away. Harley massaged her wrist and stuck out her tongue at the masked man and said, I'll show you, I can be a normal person. She smiled widely and put her hand on her hips. After all, how hard could it be? Watching as Batman started to leave, Batgirl let her mind wander and couldn't help but shudder at the strange thought of Harley acting normal. Mr. Uzumaki. Mr. Uzumaki, a word please. Naruto sighed and turned around. Behind him stood a woman with light red hair in a blue suit, dress followed by a cameraman. Fuck, he moaned inwardly, it was that reporter chick who wanted an interview back when he was in Arkham. Hi, I'm Summer from Gotham News. Can I ask you some questions? The woman asked, taking a second to give him a once-over. Naruto was dressed in his jeans and hoodie as usual. Naruto schooled his features and crossed his arms. I'm sure you will anyway. Undeterred by the statement, Summer started questioning him. Now that you've been released from Arkham, what will you do? I'll live day by day. I've been doing well like that so far, Naruto answered. What do you say to the people who think that you should be locked up for the rest of your life? Naruto's blank look turned dark. I would say that everyone is entitled to their opinion just like they are entitled to freedom. If they think my freedom should be taken away because of my past mistakes, then it's their right. The second they try to take it into their own hands, it when I'll fight for that right. Some are saying that you are planning on fighting with the police now, as a way to keep out of Arkham. Is this true? Naruto gave her a strange look. I wouldn't hold my breath on that. I've never been the type to serve and protect for a pat on the head, and I was released from Arkham by the government under my now completed contract. Besides, Naruto said with a grin, Gotham PD wouldn't be able to pay the fee it takes for me to work for them. Some people stopped to see what was going on and watched with both skeptical and interested looks. Summer blinked for a second before catching the full meaning of what he had said. So you still plan on living a life of crime? Naruto stopped her. No, not crime. I plan on continuing my life as a mercenary. Why? Naruto looked her right in the eyes. Because war never changes, he quoted before turning around and walking away. Summer stood frozen as he walked away. The things she saw in his eyes scared her. They were full of primal darkness, eyes that bore witness to so much pain and hate. Eyes that belonged to hardened war veterans. Eyes that shouldn't belong to a young man like him. Harley hummed while she was pulled along by a pair of hyenas on leashes. She wore a pair of skates, a skirt, and a sleeveless white shirt tied up above her belly. Her hair was pulled in 2 ponytails that bounced and shook while she glided down the streets, making the normal people leap out of the way. chewing a large amount of gum and blowing large bubbles. Her eyes brightened as she saw a cute pink dress in the window. Snatching back on the leashes, Harley gazed through the window with stars in her eyes. Dipping into an alley to avoid any more civilians, Naruto walked up the wall casually, then situated himself on a ledge overlooking the city from 10 stories up. Not a day back in Gotham and he was already annoyed by the press. All he had done was return to his hideout, get fussed over by overprotective Bane, change back into his regular clothes, and go for a walk. Once they aired his unexpected interview, he was sure that Bats and quite a few more people would look for him, either to try and bust his ass just as soon as he did one thing wrong or try to recruit him. He was hoping that Bats would understand the valid threat in his interview. Bats wasn't dumb when he said, "The second they try to take it into their own hands it when I'll fight for that right." He was talking about Batman and openly admitted that he fight if he tried to get his sent back to Arkham. Dangling his legs over the edge of the building he looked down. Well, if it isn't Bruce Wayne. Wonder what he's doing. Oh, he's with a girl too. Is it me or is there a lot of redheads around here? Naruto wondered. After a second, overweight security guard flew through a large glass window with a pair of laughing hyenas biting at his clothes. Leaning closer, Naruto watched in interest as the rich boy told his girl to wait while he tried to find out what happened. Buzz buzz buzz. Naruto jumped in surprise as his cell phone started vibrating violently in his pocket. Fishing it out, he flipped it open. Yay. Hi Foxy. Naruto's sweat dropped. Harley, what a surprise, he said slowly. You're able to make phone calls now. Harley laughed nervously on the other end. No, I was released yesterday. Naruto hummed and watched as the two hyenas ripped the poor man's clothing apart. Really? That's great. Staying out of trouble? Ah. Naruto's eye twitched. You're in trouble, aren't you? It was more of a statement than anything else. How do you know? Harley asked softly, almost embarrassed that she was. Do you have a pair of hyenas? Yay. She answered, confused at the sudden change of question. Naruto heard another voice over the line, but the sounds of something breaking and a growl from Harley drowned it out. Back up, rich boy. I'm armed. A series of groans was heard before Harley returned. I'll be there soon. After a second of watching, the doors to the shopping center swung open and out ran Harley in her red and black costume. She pushed the redhead that was with Bruce into the back of Bruce's convertible and whistled to her babies that left their toy guard and leapt into the back seat while the redhead situated herself in the front passenger side. Naruto sighed but let a small laugh escape him. 2 fucking days trouble, he said to himself. I knew I liked you for some reason, Harley. Leaping from rooftop to rooftop, Naruto pulled out his cell phone and hit redial. Waiting for her to pick up, he flipped over a billboard and nearly took out a pigeon that pecked at him as he passed. Hello. He heard Harley say. Harley, whatever you do not swerve or slow down, Naruto ordered before growling and letting out a roar-like yell. What do you? Harley started only to scream loudly as a familiar blonde landed heavily on the hood, his hair waving wildly with the wind. Move over, he yelled to the animals in the backseat. Naruto stepped over the 2 females and sat between the 2 hyenas before leaning over the front. Harley. What the fuck is going on? You just got out of Arkham and now you're kidnapping someone. Do you want to go back? He asked. Hey, I didn't mean to, it just happened. You gotta believe me, Harley said. Naruto went wide-eyed as she started to turn around in her seat. Hold up, Harley. I believe you oh shit. He yelled, jumping forward and jerking the wheel to the side, missing a large truck. Can't you just put me off here? The redhead asked, face pale and full of fear. Both Harley and Naruto turned to her. No, they both said at the same time, making her flinch. Harley, you need to stop running or... No, she screamed, I'm not going back to Arkham. Okay, calm down, Spaz, Naruto said, sitting back. Oh dear, Harley said out of the blue, making Naruto raise an eyebrow. What? He asked, turning around and raising an eyebrow. So what, it's just a few cop cars, no big deal. Both Harley, the hyenas, and the redhead turned and stared at him. A few normally consisted of 4 to 5, not 10. And who are you surpassed to be? Superman. Do you think you can beat all those police officers? The redhead asked. Oh, I'm Naruto Uzumaki, he replied, reaching out to shake her hand with a foxy smirk. Who might you be? To her credit, the woman only gaped for a moment before closing her mouth. I'm Veronica Vreeland. A tense silence followed, not even the hyenas laughed. Only the sound of police sirens could be heard over the roar of the engine while they zoomed through traffic. Harley was breaking down inside. She only wanted to live a normal happy life and never go back to Arkham. But here she was, running from the police with an army general's daughter and Naruto in the back seat. She felt bad for dragging him into this, but he was the only one she could really rely on besides that creep Bennett. Besides, he did say that he would help her if she ever needed it. Harley. Naruto called. Yeah? We need to get to the freeway. It would be easier for me to help you lose them from there. Do you know any shortcuts? The grin she gave him made him regret asking. I assure you, General, we are trying our best to get your daughter back, Commissioner Gordon said to the enraged father. He growled, "That not good enough," then pounded his fist onto the desk, making a cup of coffee tip over. Commissioner Gordon gave him a hard stare which made him shrink down, losing all his previous rage. "I'm sorry, Gordon. I just want my little Veronica back. Could you give this old war dog a moment to compose himself?" Gordon sighed. "Of course, General." Watching as he walked out, General Vreeland picked up the phone and dialed a number. "Hello. This is General Vreeland. I need a favor." Both Naruto and the hyenas were buckled in as Harley drove like a madwoman, through bushes, fences, parks. It didn't matter. After many near-death experiences, the beaten and banged car roared out on the freeway, followed by significantly less police cars. Veronica now sat in the rear of the car clutching onto the blonde man in fear who did the same thing to her. Demon or not, Harley's shortcuts scared him. "Here we are, Foxy," Harley proclaimed happily, a few twigs sticking to the puffballs on her suit. Naruto scrambled to unbuckle his seatbelt. "Keep driving, I'll be back soon," he told them before prying the woman's arms from around him. "Hey, where are you going?" Veronica asked loudly. "Out," Naruto answered before jumping off the car and sliding down the road until a police car neared. Pulling back, Naruto punched the middle of the hood, stopping it in its tracks and bringing the rear up off the ground. Doing the same to another car, he disappeared as a few of the other cars braked hard and ended up rear-ending the reeks. A couple of the cars swerved around the wrecked vehicles and zoomed past Naruto, making him frown. Channeling wind allowed his arm, he leapt into the air and made a slashing motion at the closest, making a fast-moving distortion fly towards the police cars. A loud slicing sound echoed over all the confusion. The speeding car split down the middle, one side hitting the divider rails, the other hitting the wall. Smirking at the destruction and chaos, Naruto rushed off towards the final car that was chasing after Harley. 5 minutes. 5 minutes he had left Harley alone and she had already gotten into more shit. Flying down the road at superhuman speed, Naruto caught up with the black convertible to find not only a police car giving chase, but a helicopter and the Batmobile. His first move was to remove the weakest target. Teleporting in front of the cop car, he jumped onto the hood as it sped towards him and grinned as he saw the man and woman scream through the window. Channeling fire this time, he overheated the car, causing the engine to blow and melt under the intense heat before disappearing and reappearing back in the car next to Harley. "Well, that leaves bats," he said, watching as Harley jumped. How did you do that?" "Do what?" What did I do?" Harley growled. "How did you fall into the car? You jumped out at least a mile back." Naruto started to answer, but a loud clang cut him off. Suddenly the car jerked to a stop, making Harley slam head first into the steering wheel. Veronica hit the front seat, and the two hyenas hit the back foot of the car. Naruto, however, got the worst of it. With nothing to hold him in, his whole body was propelled through the front glass where he rag-dolled down the street, leaving a trail of blood wherever he hit. In the Batmobile, both Bruce and Barbara watched in horror and shock as they saw the blonde roll and tumble along the asphalt. Batman had fired a large hook into the back of the car and slammed on the brakes, which made the car stop suddenly. He hadn't expected that to happen though. Naruto's body rolled into a concrete divider which budged slightly but stopped him from rolling into oncoming traffic. "Oh my god!" Barbara gasped. Naruto didn't move. Harley groaned painfully as she leaned back and rubbed her head. Feeling something wet, she pulled her hand back and noticed blood on her hand. "Blood?" she questioned. What happened?" Batgirl jumped from the Batmobile and ran to the car with Batman right behind her. He ran past to check on Naruto while she helped Harley and Veronica. Reaching the front door, she saw Veronica out cold in the back seat, her chest moving up and down at a steady rate. Opening the door, she quickly caught Harley as she started to fall out. Babe? Harley asked through her blurry vision. Shush. Don't talk, everything's going to be okay. We're going to get you some help. She cooed, hoping to keep her from moving. Harley shook her head. Is Veronica okay? I never meant to hurt her, I just... Stop talking, Harley, she's fine. Batgirl said, holding the large cut on Harley's forehead that was caused by the glass shattering. Your head's bleeding pretty bad, I need you to be still to keep it from opening any worse. Wait here while I help Veronica. Harley kept still but slowly went in and out of consciousness. Her head lolled to the side where she saw a familiar blonde blur off in the distance with Batman kneeling beside him, quickly doing something fantasy. She called softly, trying to move towards him, catching Batgirl's attention. Batgirl stopped her and held her down. Harley, I said don't move. Then at least tell me if he's all right, Harley asked with tears in her eyes. Batgirl looked over to Batman, who was doing compressions on the blonde's chest. After a few times he felt the boy's neck before turning to her with a frown. When he shook his head slowly, she looked back down at Harley, who saw the whole exchange with teary eyes before passing out. Bruce cursed himself for not thinking his actions through. He was surpassed to protect people, both good and bad, but due to his actions Uzumaki Naruto was close to death, if not already dead. Out of all the other villains in Gotham, Naruto was the only one who he really respected and believed in. He didn't know why, but he just felt that Naruto could change for the better, as crazy as it was. Even after all the crimes he had committed, he still felt that the blonde superhuman could change. After all, no one had died by the blonde's hand, and it was usually one of his thugs' fault if anyone had gotten hurt, not his. Unable to feel a pulse, he quickened his pace. Who the fuck is trying to crush my ribs? Naruto wondered to himself as he allowed his chakra to quickly heal all the scrapes and injuries he had gotten just moments ago. Opening one of his eyes, he saw Batman beside him, looking over to Batgirl and shaking his head. Striking up with one of his legs, Naruto surprised Batman by kicking him in the face and knocking off his feet and onto his back with a groan. Naruto rolled over and staggered to his feet, ignoring the shocked looks that everyone gave him. His hair shadowed his eyes, but his wide toothy grin was visible for the world to see. That was. The sound of multiple bones popping into place echoed over the chaos while he jerked slightly in his shoulders, signifying that they had been snapped out of joint. Fun. He finished before looking up, shocking everyone with the sight of his ruby-red gaze. He stopped for a second with a look of discomfort on his face before looking down to see his foot bent to an awkward direction, far too much to the left for it to be natural. Bending down, he went to pop it back into place, but noticed that his middle finger was bent back and twisted. Naruto used his other hand and forced himself to make a fist which reset his broken bone before fixing his foot with a sickening crunch. With everything fixed and chakra coursing through his body to repair anything else, he took a step towards the dynamic duo, who instinctively took a step back. He grinned even harder before remembering his fellow blonde and frowning as he saw her on the ground with a small trail of blood dripping from her forehead. He didn't have time to play with the two bats right now. He needed to get Harley, Veronica, and both the hyenas out of here before they suffered any more damage. This isn't over, Bat. If my friend suffers because of this, I'll make your life so fucking miserable that you'll kill yourself. He growled at them before blurring past them with a burst of speed, leaving nothing but after images and Bruce's wrecked car. Batgirl blinked beneath her mask, as did Batman. Okay. That went better than I thought it would. I mean, at least he didn't try to kill us. Something's not right, Batman said, seemingly not hearing Batgirl. Yeah, Naruto and Harley are working together now, she shot while walking with Batman towards the car, and he took Veronica with him. No. Harley's just confused and scared of going back to Arkham. Just before all this happened, I tried to help her but heard her asking Fox for help on the phone. He replied, jumping into the driver's seat. Batgirl jumped into the passenger seat and looked at him with a confused frown. So, Naruto is just trying to help her. Batman nodded. That's what I'm thinking, he stated before rubbing his jaw. He's got a mean kick too. Harley groaned as she came to. Opening her eyes, she found herself laying on a small army cot against a concrete wall. She was in a small room that looked like an old office. Rubbing her head, she winced as she touched the bandages right over a tender spot. Ow, she squeaked just as the door opened. Harley. She looked over to see Veronica walking over with a small smile. "What are you doing here, kid?" she asked, looking at the girl. Veronica shrugged. "I don't really know, I just woke up here while Naruto was bandaging you up." "Where are we?" Harley asked, sitting up. "I really don't know. He said that I wasn't allowed to leave the offices without an escort, probably to keep me from running and giving away his hideout," Veronica said with a small giggle. "Not that I'd have to, I saw how big this place was." Harley threw the covers off and gasped as she found herself dressed in a large white shirt and her panties. "Where are my clothes?" she said loudly, covering herself back up. "Right here." The two women turned around quickly to find Naruto walking in carrying a pair of outfits. One was her red and black clown suit while another was some civilian clothes. "I took the liberty of fixing your suit and bringing you some extra clothes I had laying around." Harley took a second and looked over to Veronica and noticed that she was no longer wearing her black and white sundress but was now wearing a pair of jeans and a black t-shirt. Veronica saw the look and shrugged. "At first I thought he was stupid for giving me these, but they are extremely comfortable." Naruto walked in and dropped the clothing on the desk in the corner. "You might want to hold on moving for a little bit, Harley. You've both been out for a few hours." "No," Harley said firmly, "I need to get out of Gotham and lay low." "Where would you go?" Naruto asked harshly, crossing his arms and giving her a stern glare. "You're a certified nut, so wanted in 7 different states. You're not that hard to track down, and you, for some reason I have yet to understand, are madly in love with a psychotic clown who abuses you." Harley looked down and Naruto rubbed his forehead. "Look, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, but the cold hard truth is, you need to just let Veronica go and turn yourself in. That would show the doctors that you are really trying to turn your life around." Harley nodded. "Yeah, I guess you're right, Foxy," she said in a defeated voice. "Look, Harley," Veronica spoke up, "I kinda had fun. Even though I was scared most of the time, I'm going to drop the charges." Naruto gave a small smile at the blonde's bright eyes. "Now come on and get dressed, I'll be waiting downstairs." When Harley and Veronica slowly made their way down the metal stairs, they found themselves surrounded by large green metal crates around 3 feet high and 5 feet long. Each had a latch and a lock on the top with a serial number written in black paint. Off to the side was a dull black convertible, slightly larger than Bruce Wayne's. Beyond it, Naruto was typing on a small desktop computer. Sensing the two females, he cut the power to the monitor and turned around. "Took long enough," he muttered before turning to them. "Your babies are asleep over in the corner. I'll take care of them for you while this mess gets sorted out," he said, knowing that she was going to ask. Pulling a set of keys from his pocket, he held them up and shook them. "Feel like driving?" he asked them. Veronica gave him a "Are you serious?" look and Harley grinned. Naruto once again found himself being crushed by Veronica in the back seat of his car. He felt like slapping himself for letting the girl drive. It really wasn't her fault, just the idiots who recognized her and chased her. One being a pissed-off mobster driving a stolen fish truck, another was a large detective who wrecked his car because of them, and finally a fucking tank driven by Veronica's father. "Don't you have anything to stop a tank?" Harley cried out as she sped down the road. Naruto thought about it for a second before smirking. "As a matter of fact, I might," he said before depositing her into the front. He then proceeded to pop the back cushion off and reach into the trunk. "Found it," he yelled. Both Harley and Veronica turned and gaped at the sight. Leaning against the back of the front seat, Naruto propped a long green tube on his shoulder while aiming down a small scope and fingering a trigger. "Where did you get a bazooka?" they both yelled, making him look over his shoulder and smirk at them. "Well, the army really shouldn't leave their toys out around a person like me," he said before turning back to the scope and standing to get a better shot at the tank. Veronica gasped and pulled him back down. "You can't shoot my father," she screamed just before the thing went off, sending a rocket flying into the air. Laying between them on his back, his feet over the cushion, Naruto turned his head toward her and gave her a hard stare. "That, my dear, is not your father. That's your father, in a tank," he growled. Naruto pulled himself back into the back seat before sliding the empty weapon back into the trunk and closing the opening back up before turning around and crossing his arms, giving his vision of a pout. Giving a small sigh, he turned and opened the car door, propping it open with his shoulder. He stuck his head out and channeled his ice powers into a ball before tossing it behind the car and causing the whole road to freeze over, sending all three cars sliding across the asphalt. The convertible pulled over in an alleyway and Harley cut the engine. "Well, that went well," Naruto said sarcastically, jumping out of the back seat with a small frown, slightly annoyed with the redhead for messing up his shot with the bazooka, not like he was aiming to kill, just blow the tank off its tracks and immobilize it. "This is where you get out, Veronica," Naruto told her, opening the door for her. Veronica gave him a look. "You're just leaving me here?" she asked from the front seat. Naruto took her hand and pulled her out of the car. "I would think that you would be happy to escape from our evil clutches," the blonde said with a frown. "Besides, both you and Clown Girl here are too much trouble together." "Hey," Naruto shot Harley a look. "Now Harley, don't you even try to deny it. You don't even have to start trouble, it finds you," he told her, making her blush. Naruto shut the door and walked around to the driver's side where Harley was sitting, slid over. Harley slid over and he jumped behind the wheel. "Here," he called, digging through his pockets and pulling out one of those prepaid cell phones that were hard to track. "Use that to call someone to pick you up." He cranked the engine and revved it. "Hey, don't you want this back?" Veronica yelled, holding the phone up. Naruto shook his head. "No, you keep it, we're getting the hell out of here." Veronica sighed as the car shot off. At least Fox had left her in a good neighborhood with a phone to call the police. Naruto and Harley rode in silence. Harley thought about how her fellow blonde was protecting her, helping her while risking his own ass. Naruto thought about how to help Harley dodge the police and the Batman. He could take care of himself easily, unlike her. "Thanks, Foxy," Harley said after they drove a few miles. "Don't mention it, Harley." Later that night, Batman landed on the rooftop of Gotham PD and looked around. The bat signal was on, but no one was there. Usually the commissioner was there to tell him something very important, but strangely he wasn't. Suddenly the door burst open and Commissioner Gordon rushed out onto the roof with his service pistol in hand. "Batman," Gordon said with a shocked tone as he holstered the gun, "what's going on here?" Batman looked around. "I don't know, Commissioner. I thought you turned on the signal." "Actually," Naruto said in an icy tone, "I did." He walked out from the shadows like a ninja and gave them both a cold stare. "Fox?" the two crime fighters said in shock, turning to face the villain and preparing themselves for a fight. "Don't look so surprised, Batman. I told you this wasn't over," he said while crossing his arms. "So you're here to fight, is that it?" Gordon asked while his hand inched towards his pistol. Naruto smirked. "Actually, believe it or not, I have no reason to fight you, not yet anyway." The blonde spoke. "My friend Harley, she's agreed to turn herself in, and you know as good as I do that she hasn't done anything that should send her back to Arkham. She destroyed public and private property, ran from the police, and kidnapped the daughter of an army general," Gordon listed. "If that doesn't warrant a trip to Arkham, I don't know what does." "She was just released from Arkham. She was terrified of being sent back, and Ms. Veronica has already forgiven her and won't press charges. Besides, her father tried to kill us with a tank. Not only that, but had he done so, it would have killed Veronica too. And for the destruction of property. I did it, and if you try to pin it on her, then I promise that a few broken windows, busted cars, and messed up roads will be the least of your problems. I'll destroy everything you love." The two stood there shaking. The supervillain in front of them not only admitted to committing those crimes but threatened their family and friends. Not only did it scare them, but the fact that he could easily do it filled them with dread. But what cemented their fear was when his eyes glowed red. "Now," Naruto started, "you are going to tell the media that Harley is innocent and no charges will be filed. If you have to blame me, Harley deserves her freedom, and as long as she's my friend, I won't let you take that from her." Naruto looked at the pair for a second, then nodded. "Harley is waiting for you in your office, Commissioner. Have a pleasant evening." With that said, Naruto leapt over the edge. Time skip. 2 months. Naruto sat in the office of his warehouse hideout and stared at what he called his soon-to-be trophy wall. Not that he was winning a trophy or anything, but it was where he was posting every headline about himself, rather it be a robbery or when he helped engineer a daring prison break as revenge on Batman for the little highway incident with him rolling down the road at high speeds. He had released all but a few of the villains, namely the Joker, who he had left screaming as other prisoner patients ran by his cell door. When Ivy asked him why he was letting them all out, he asked her, "Why should I do all the dirty work? If I'm right, the Bat Duo will be having a long week catching these ingrates and I won't have to do anything else." Which made terrific sense to her. Speaking of Poison Ivy, She and Harley had left Gotham together a few weeks ago to go on vacation after Naruto offered them the funds to do so. Mostly because they were getting on his nerves, with Harley flipping around his warehouse and breaking shit while Ivy's plants getting all lovely devey with his, which was scary to say the least. Have you ever seen two big-ass Venus flytraps making out? Last he heard from them was that Ivy had dragged Harley into the rainforests to search for some rare plant. That and probably do her thing as an eco-terrorist and murder the ones destroying the delicate ecosystems. But unlike the former queens of crime, he wasn't having some grand adventure in the concrete jungle, he was bored out of his mind. The little robberies were just to keep him occupied since he had nothing better to do. Batman was busy as hell trying to catch the supervillains and lunatics he released from Arkham. His little worshippers were blindly following his orders like little ants, and the police were too busy trying to suppress the rising crime rates to come after him. The doors to his warehouse base slid open and after a moment one of his personal loonies walked in with a large suitcase in hand. Standing up and walking towards the one-way window he found that it was the cult leader who usually rallied the troops for him. He was a middle-aged man with sharp green eyes and dark brown, nearly black hair which he had combed back. From his files at Arkham, Naruto had found unstable psychopath who suffered from dementia and would try to murder people for demonic rituals. Watching from the second floor office window, Naruto saw the man leave the suitcase on a table and leave. While to a normal person it would seem like a bombing attempt, Naruto knew that the man didn't have the balls to do anything that stupid against him. With a puff of smoke, a shadow clone went to take care of the delivery. It was probably just another case of the money they were paying him from the drug sells on the streets. Turning back around in his large chair in his fixed-up office, courtesy of his gang, Naruto pulled out one of the few kunai he had from the other world and started carving little pictures into the table before slamming it an inch deep with a growl. "I'm so fucking bored." Batman and Batgirl stopped and looked around. "You hear that, Batman?" Batgirl asked, looking around after hearing a faint yell in the distance. "If you're so fucking bored, then why don't you go on vacation like Harley and Ivy?" the clone said, walking into the room while rubbing his ear with his free hand. The kunai in the table sailed across the room and killed the clone. "Why didn't I think of that?" Naruto wondered. He snapped his fingers and a group of clones appeared. "Get to work, we're going on vacation," he called with a smirk. One of the clones whooped, "Yeah. Where are we going?" it yelled as the others looked at him with a WTF expression. It was killed as Naruto shot it with a pistol from his desk. "I mean we as in, me, myself, and I. You all will be packing, now," he said, yelling the last part and making the clones scatter, a few of them slamming into each other as they ran. Naruto sat back again and started to think, where would he go? He really didn't plan on leaving the city and hadn't thought about any other places. Maybe go to another city with a superhero and screw with them for a while. Hell, maybe they'll have a sense of humor unlike the Capes Crusader. Hold up, he told himself. Thinking back, he remembered hearing about a young man getting strange powers over electricity in Detroit, Michigan. Static Shock, he called himself. Naruto thought about it and grinned. Oh, this would be fun, but first he'd have to give Bats a little present so he wouldn't miss him too much. Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, stopped once again as she patrolled the rooftops with Batman. "Is something wrong?" he asked after noticing that she had stopped. Batgirl shook her head. "No, it's just that I got this strange feeling that something was about to happen." Batman gave her a look, but before he could say anything an alarm went off and he noticed a group of thieves run out of a little corner store down below. "Come on," he ordered, forgetting her strange feeling and jumping down from the roof while aiming his grappling hook. She sighed. "I can't get any sympathy." Naruto leapt across the city in search of the crime-fighting duo. Mostly Batgirl. Following the sounds of police sirens, he found them watching over a ledge as the police loaded up a band of bandits, each bound and gagged with rope as police carried them into the back of a police transport truck. He walked over and stood beside them silently, joining them in watching the frenzy below. Neither had noticed him yet, and he thought about it. Why wouldn't I? He questioned himself before silently backing away and moving behind them. "Well, let's get." Batman started only to be cut off by Naruto's boot connecting with his ass, sending him over the edge. "Batman!" Batgirl screamed as he plummeted, catching himself on a flagpole. She turned and nearly fell too as she saw Naruto standing there with one of his grins plastered on his face. "Hello, Batgirl," he said before grabbing the back of her head and pulling her into a deep kiss while his other hand copped a feel of her ass. Pervert! She screamed after he broke the kiss, mostly because he had felt her up, not because of the kiss which she had enjoyed. Naruto caught her wrist as she went in for a slap and pulled her close, making her face redden as her nose landed in the crook of his neck, giving her the best chance to catch a strong whiff of his scent. "Oh, calm down, beautiful," Naruto said to her, having some fun as he messed with her. "I just came to say goodbye and that I'll miss you while I'm gone on vacation." Batgirl barely put up a struggle in his arms. "Vacation?" she asked with a confused voice. "Criminals go on vacation?" He released her and thought about it. "I don't know, but I do." By then Batman had finally made his way back up the building and gave Naruto his usual, Dark Knight glare. "Uzumaki, what do you want?" he questioned. "Oh, just to say that I'll miss you while on vacation and will be thinking of you." "Not you, Batman, I'm straight. I'll be thinking of your voluptuous partner Batgirl." Batman blinked. "Criminals go on vacation?" he asked while Batgirl blushed. Naruto shrugged again. "I guess. Everyone needs a break every now and again. Honestly, I just need some excitement. Gotham's going through a crime depression, so I figured that I'll go do my thing somewhere else." "Well, I'll see you when I come back, bye." With that, he left the two dumbfounded vigilantes standing on the roof and disappeared in a blur. "Wait a minute." Batgirl started, breaking the awkward silence. He said, "To do his thing somewhere else, that means." Batman nodded, "That some other city is going to suffer a crime wave unlike they've ever known." "Should we do something? I'll call the rest of the Justice League and warn them." In the watchtower orbiting the Earth, Joan Jones, aka the Martian Manhunter, was working at the main terminal when a call from Batman came through. "Joan, is the rest of the League at the tower?" Batman said just as soon as the line went through, not even bothering to say hello or anything to the green-skinned man. "Hello to you too, Batman," Joan said with a hint of sarcasm, "and yes, we are all here today. I need to tell everyone about a criminal metahuman that has recently left Gotham." A few minutes later, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Hawkgirl, Joan, and the Flash, the founding members, which included Batman, of the Justice League, were around the screen. "What is it, Bruce?" Superman asked as they all assembled. "Recently, Gotham's gotten another metahuman supervillain to add to the list, Uzumaki Naruto. He goes by the alias Fox," Bruce said. "How strong is this man?" the Man of Steel asked. Batman frowned. "I don't know for sure. He's so tricky that you think you have him beat, but then you find out that it was what he wanted you to do. The last time we fought I thought we had him beat, but now I suspect that he only let us send him to Arkham so he could get a layout of the place so he could pull off the prison break not long ago. We've been trying to find and catch all the escapees." "So where is he now?" Diana questioned. "That's what I wanted to warn you all about. He just informed me that he was leaving Gotham on vacation." "Criminals go on vacation?" The Flash wondered out loud. Time skip. 4 days. Naruto stood on top of a tall building in the city of Dakota with his arms crossed and a small frown on his face. He had come to find something out about himself. He was slightly insane. Or had split personalities really wasn't that much of a shock. I mean, really, he tended to feel one way one day and act all serious, then come the next day he would be all happy and dopey like he was the day he left. Had he turned out normal after all he had been, that would have been amazing. Naruto hadn't been in the city long, but he could tell this was a hotbed of activity. Not too long ago he had seen a huge robot slam through the wall of a community center only to have Static Shock himself come and try to stop it. Funny thing is, the robot was some video game figure, but the strangest part was that he sensed a connection between the robot and a preteen with brown hair wearing a long green jacket. Over the last 2 days, he had kept an eye on that kid and his stuck-up older brother. He had seen the Brawler reality and figured that it was because of that Big Bang incident that caused people to develop strange powers, or as other, normal, people called them, bang babies. Looking down at the street, he saw the kid walking by himself and smirked. He could use a brat like him. All he had to do was build the little kid's trust up. Dwayne clutched his backpack and brooded sadly as he trudged down the street. His stepbrother had ditched him. His mom was always busy and Aaron thought he was annoying, so he usually spent his time alone playing video games. Aaron had found out his secret the other day and was getting frustrated that he couldn't do things like make $100 bills or a key to a nice car. Then he was invited to a party and ditched him. He turned down an alleyway and jumped as a voice from behind caught him off guard. "Hello, Dwayne." The boy spun around and saw a blonde teenager standing at the end wearing a black hoodie and blue jeans. "Who are you and how do you know my name?" Dwayne asked, slightly afraid and knowing about the dangers of being alone. Naruto smiled. "Oh, where are my manners? My name is Uzumaki Naruto and I've been watching you. I think your little reality-bending power is pretty neat," he told him as nicely as he could. "You know?" Dwayne said, shocked that someone else knew. He had tried to keep it a secret. "Of course I do," Naruto told him with a laugh. "Watch this." Dwayne was amazed as Naruto blurred away reappeared standing on a wall. "Cool," the boy cheered. "You're just like a ninja." "You'd be surprised, kid," Naruto murmured, jumping from the wall and landing firmly on the ground. "I see that your brother left you by yourself." Dwayne's grin vanished. He got invited to a stupid party and said I wasn't old enough to go. Naruto put on a sympathetic face. "That's too bad, Dwayne, but what are you doing out alone?" "My mom doesn't get off of work for a while and she gave Aaron the spare key, so I have to wait for one of them to come home first," the boy said dejectedly. "Well, tell you what," Naruto said, squatting down to the boy. "I was thinking about going to arcade. You can come with me if you want and play some games. I'll even take you home when your mom gets off work." Dwayne wasn't sure. "I don't know. I can show you some cool ninja tricks," Naruto said with a convincing tone. Dwayne grinned. "What are we waiting for?" Naruto smirked. Right. Let me show you something cool." He turned and knelt down. "Jump on my back and hold on tight." "So what's up, Virgil? You think of a way to tell Dwayne that his brother is using him?" a teen with short blonde hair asked, fixing his glasses as he walked next to his best friend. Virgil sighed. "Man, I don't know, Richie. Dwayne don't want to believe it. He doesn't want to think that his brother is using him." "Well, we have to think of something. Dwayne can't keep robbing places for Aaron," Richie said as they walked through the doors to the newly rebuilt community center. Virgil looked around and saw his father working in his office. "Hey Pops, is Dwayne here?" Robert Hawkins was a dark-skinned, heavy-set man. He wore glasses and had short hair unlike his son. His clothing usually consisted of a light blue button-up shirt with a pair of darker blue pants. "No, he hasn't showed up today, son," Robert told him while typing on his computer. "Yo, Richie, this isn't good. No telling what might happen to him. We have to find him," Virgil whispered to his friend as not to alarm his dad and set off a whole citywide search. Naruto stalked the streets, hidden by the shadows while looking for a place to knock over for some extra cash. Rounding a corner, he saw a large armored truck parked outside a sporting goods store and watched as an armed guard threw a money bag in the back before returning back into the store. Now what kind of thief would I be if I ignored this golden opportunity? He asked himself while popping his knuckles and making his eyes turn silted red, then running a hand through his hair, slicking it back. He'd have to look different in case static showed up if a camera caught him. Didn't want to chance risking Dwayne's trust in him just yet. He looked a little like Virgil from DMC with red eyes. Walking up to the truck, he idly sensed a few of those strange energy signatures like Dwayne's. Probably a couple of bang babies around. They felt a little like chakra. Whatever happened during the Big Bang must have affected the chakra in their bodies and given them something like a bloodline, except that their kids wouldn't inherit it. Or would they? "This is the last of it, sir," the guard said, walking out and giving the approaching blonde a suspicious look. "Can I help you, boy?" Naruto's hair shadowed his eyes as he walked right up to the guard with a grin. "Yeah, you can give me all the cash in that truck." The guard gave him a strange look. "Kid, get out of here before you get hurt," he said before turning to lock the door. "Oh no," Naruto stated, grabbing him by the back of his neck. "I insist." The guard screamed as he was thrown into the armored door, denting it. Naruto walked over and pried the door open just as the guard in the driver's seat got out to see what was happening and swung it, knocking the man out. Hearing the thud and groan, Naruto peeked around the door and saw the man laid out on the street. "Damn, you got knocked the fuck out." Shrugging it off, Naruto went back and started picking up the bags, only to drop it as a bolt of lightning hit his hand, shocking him and making his hand smoke. "Didn't you know? Friday's payday for most people?" Naruto turned slowly while massaging his smoking hand. "Well, if it isn't Static." "How? Shocking." Static stood on top of an electrified disc wearing baggy black pants with a gray belt, a white t-shirt with a matching mask, and a long blue jacket with a yellow inside. Naruto popped his neck. I was wondering when I'd run into you, Static. I'm glad that you showed up so quick because I wanted to know which one of us had better control, he said. Better control of what? Static questioned, getting ready for a fight. Naruto could only laugh as he walked out of the truck and charged up his own body with more lightning than he ever had before, sending waves of lightning coursing over his body. He had never energized himself to such an extent before, only using his power for little things, and to unleash so much at once was a little exciting. Finally, the amount became so great that a bolt of natural lightning struck from the sky, an amazing feat seeing as it wasn't stormy at all, only a little cloudy. Whoa, talk about a lightning rod, Static said as he covered his eyes. Never take your eyes off the enemy lightning bug, Naruto called from the blackened ground, holding out his hand which buzzed with energy. With a loud crack that sounded like thunder, a long arc of lightning flew and narrowly missed the hero, who flew to the side on his disc to hopefully dodge. Unknown to Static, the breed were watching from the rooftops. They had been planning on robbing the place but found that someone had beaten them to it and was now doing the same to Static. Whoa, the one in red with purple hair exclaimed. Aben, check it out, it's like Hero Static and Evil Static. I see it, homie. Who knew that there was someone else like that? Aben said while sticking his shadowy head out of a shadow on the wall. A woman covered in feathers and wearing purple landed next to him. Not only that, but he looks better too. Whoa! Static cried out as he dodged another bolt, then fired off one of his own, hitting a fire hydrant near the blonde and causing a torrent of water to shoot up in the air, giving him the chance to get around his opposite. Naruto wiped his face as the water rained down on him, messing up his slicked back hair and making it hang limply wherever it was. Sort of like Dante. His red eyes scanned the area in front of him while his ears listened for any sounds. Too bad the rushing water made it hard, or else he would have heard the attack from behind him, frying his back and shocking whole body, amplified it to the point it exploded and sent him flying across the street. Static watched, not really expecting to see him get up, but when the sounds of growling reached his ears over the busted fire hydrant, he was surprised to see Naruto standing there and glaring at him while his hoodie was reduced to rags. That was my favorite coat you pick, Naruto seethed, turning around to where he spotted one of those large blue metal mailboxes and grabbed the thing with his bare hands. The sound of screeching metal and crumbling cement filled the air as Naruto tore the bolted-down mailbox and effortlessly held it over his head. By now, police were setting up a perimeter and a news chopper was flying around. Inside the chopper, the newswoman started her broadcast. We have breaking news. Here, live on the scene, we are witnessing a true spectacle. Below us, the metahuman aka Bang Baby Hero Static is fighting an unknown male with powers similar to his own. Look out! The pilot yelled. Hold on! The cameraman and the reporter stumbled and screamed as the chopper jerked to the side and the mailbox flew past. Hey! Naruto laughed as the mailbox shattered the windshield of a police car. Airmail, he muttered to himself before flipping back and dodging a metal storm drain cover that Static threw with his power. Just who are you? Static questioned loudly. Naruto smirked and disappeared before reappearing in the open armored truck. Maybe another time, hero, he said, giving Static, who spun around to see him, a small two-fingered salute. You interest me. We will meet again. I promise you that. With that, Naruto took 2 loaded bags in each hand and disappeared, making a few loose 20s and 100s spin wildly in the air. Man, that new guy really whooped you, Richie said to Virgil as they walked to school the next morning. Virgil groaned as he readjusted the bag on his shoulder. It wouldn't have been as bad if he had just knocked me out and then left, but he had to leave me knowing that he was better and to face the news and police, he said while rubbing his eyes. Don't worry, we'll think of something. Oh, what about Dwayne? Virgil sighed again. I couldn't find him. I asked Dad to call his mom, but he said that Dwayne told her that he was with his new best friend playing games all day yesterday. Well, maybe you can catch him at the community center today after school. The bell rang and the pair stopped talking. We got a jet V.O.T. We'll be late for first period, Richie said urgently as they started to sprint up the stairs and into the school. Around 10:30 in the morning, Naruto walked down the sidewalk towards the middle school that Dwayne went to, dressed in his new black duster jacket with a hood. He was planning on getting him out very early today and take him around the city to have fun. He started to go earlier and get him out like 10 minutes into class. Class starts at 8 o'clock, but decided that he needed to meet the boy's mother to make sure neither he nor Dwayne would get into trouble. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. But both pales in comparison to a pissed-off mother. Flashback: Naruto walked into the projects that he had dropped Dwayne off at and made his way towards a sign that had "Office" written on it. Wow, reminds me of back home, he said to himself, remembering his apartment back in Konoha. Knocking on the door, he was greeted by a fat balding man in a wife beater that covered half of his body in sweatpants. "What do you want?" the man growled, his breath burning the hair inside Naruto's nose. Naruto plugged his nose as his eyes started to water. Besides a couple cans of air freshener, a box of mints, and the ability to smell again, "You could tell me where Dwayne McCall's mother is," he said in a bland and serious voice. The disgusting man frowned. "Room 35, third floor," he grumbled before turning around and making Naruto gag at the sight of his crack. He slammed the door and barely heard the sound of someone throwing up on his door. Naruto shivered and whipped his mouth of his breakfast. "God damn, that was gross," he mumbled while hunched over, holding himself up with one hand on the wall. He stood straight and burned the sight from his mind before walking towards the elevator, only to see an out-of-order sign on it and sighing, "Why am I not surprised?" Walking up the flights of stairs beside the elevator, Naruto reached the third floor and walked down the hall, counting out the doors and looking at the dirty faded gray walls with cracks all over it. "Here we are," he murmured before knocking on the door. After a few seconds of waiting, he heard the lock open and a woman with light brown hair stuck her head out. "Mrs. McCall?" Naruto asked kindly with a smile. "That's me, but I'm married. It's Price now, but who are you?" the woman asked. Naruto: "Ood, I'm sorry about that, Mrs. Price. My name is Naruto Uzumaki." "Oh," Mrs. Price said with a smile, "you're Dwayne's new friend, please come in." She opened the door wider and beckoned him inside. The place was cozy to say the least. The walls were cracked and paint was chipping, but you could tell that the woman kept the place clean and prided herself on being a good mother. He could tell that Mrs. Price had just gotten up a while ago. She was still in her slippers, a pair of dark gray pajama pants, and a light purple shirt with a white apron over it. "I'm sorry if I sound rude, but when Dwayne told me about you, I thought you were around his age," Naruto finished, taking a seat at her small wooden table while she walked to the sink and started back washing the dishes. "Yeah," Naruto laughed lightly, "don't worry, I'm not into little boys or anything like that if that's what you're wondering. To tell the truth, I'm more into older and more mature women," he told her, noticing her twitch as he said that. "Why was he with you yesterday?" "Aaron told me that he would be with him all day," Mrs. Price asked, placing a glass onto a towel beside the sink. "I was going to the arcade and saw him walking down an alley by himself. I know how dangerous the streets were and asked him why he was by himself, and he said that his brother ditched him to go to a party. So I invited him to come play some games at the arcade and brought him home afterwards." "Oh really?" Mrs. Price asked, narrowing her eyes while she turned towards him. "That's right, Mrs. Price. Oh, call me Anne," she said while looking into each other's eyes. She didn't know what happened. One minute he was just a friend of Dwayne's, then suddenly she had entertained the thought that he would be a perfect father for her child. Of course, said thought also came with the fantasy of giving Dwayne a little brother, but said thought was quickly snuffed, as she was now happily married to Mr. Price, who was hardly around. Strangely, she was happy that Naruto offered to take care of Dwayne when she had to work late. He even offered to help with his homework after school. She was relieved. Aaron was definitely his father's child and often complained when he had to babysit his stepbrother. Had he continued, she felt that his bad tendencies would rub off on Dwayne. She had often suspected that Aaron was a part of some gang and sold drugs. She didn't want Dwayne exposed to that, but beggars can't be choosers, as it was risk exposing Dwayne or risk living on the streets and still exposing Dwayne. Naruto had just left her home after telling her that he wanted to get her son from school early to go have some fun. At first she was against the thought, but Naruto had been very persuasive and pointed out that Dwayne's normal routine was wake up, rush to school, sit through classes, catch the bus to the community center where he would do his homework, play a little basketball by himself while he waited for someone to pick him up, then come home and play video games before bed. Hardly the way for a growing boy to grow up. He needed to relax and have some fun. After a moment she agreed. Why not let him do so while a responsible person like Naruto made sure he was safe as possible? Flashback end: he made his way steps, passing a grumbling janitor who complained about bratty kids throwing paper around as he followed the little signs on the wall pointing out that visitors needed to be signed in at the office. Opening the doors to the building, Naruto was greeted with a long hallway with half lockers lining the halls with little posters promoting good grades and healthy lifestyles. Naruto exclaimed, compared to most places, I half expected the school to be trashy. Interjected a sudden voice from behind him, making him feel like a kid getting caught skipping class. Turning around, he was greeted by a tall African American wearing a pale long-sleeve shirt with a tie, black pleated pants, and a pair of loafers. Naruto blinked. Oh, well yeah, who are you again? The man gave a smile and held out a hand, Mitchell Archer, school counselor. Naruto studied the hand and took it, Naruto Uzumaki. Nice to meet you, Naruto, Mitchell said while shaking his hand. I couldn't help but overhear you and couldn't agree more. But the city has started pushing more money into education now, so we've been able to fix up the school. I see, so, the cheerful counselor started, is there something I can help you with? Naruto was starting to get annoyed by his overly cheerful mood. After all, he had to listen to the problems of immature brats. What did he have to be cheerful about? Look, I'm here to pick Dwayne McCall up. Can you just tell me how I can sign him out? Do I need to go to the office or? Okay. Follow me, I'll take you to the office now, Naruto groaned inwardly and trailed after the babbling man. Just sign the paper while I call the room, the woman at the front desk told him, handing over a clipboard and a pen before reaching out and picking up a phone beside her. Ms. Lewis, I need Dwayne McCall to go please, he heard her say as he signed his name. Not 5 minutes later, said boy come jogging down the hall only to be scooped up by Naruto, who bolted out to the school. Naruto? Dwayne asked in surprise as Naruto held him under his arm. Hey Dwayne, he said, vaulting over the fence and turning, making sure that counselor wasn't near. Dwayne saw him looking around and squirmed from his grasp. Who you looking for? That counselor of yours. I swear he was trying to talk me to death. The longer he talked the weaker I felt, Naruto told him, making the boy nod. You mean Mr. Archer? Yeah, he's like that, the boy told him with a smile. So why are you here? Naruto smirked. Well, I just figured that you enjoy a break from going to school, and since you mother don't mind, you and me will be doing whatever we want for the rest of the day. Hours passed and money was spent at an incredible rate. When he dropped Dwayne off that afternoon, he was greeted by a smiling Anne Price who hugged her happy son and thanked him for watching her son. Dwayne asked if they could hang out again the next day, and since tomorrow was Friday, Naruto agreed, planning on starting his plan that day and using Dwayne to rob the mall for him. Around lunch, Naruto picked Dwayne up from his house and took him to the mall just before Eren walked around the corner to try and trick his stepbrother into stealing for him, again. Naruto, this doesn't feel right, Dwayne said as they stood on a second floor walkway with other people rushing around screaming about the large centipede-looking thing below that was busting windows with its body and stealing clothes, jewelry, and anything else it saw before dumping it into a hatch on its back. Naruto looked down at him, wearing a new pair of orange-tinted sunglasses that had just been stolen. Dwayne, the owners of these places are greedy pigs. They've raised prices higher and higher until normal people have to save money to buy it and the less fortunate don't bother to try, he said simply. I guess so. Naruto started to say something, but he faintly heard the buzzing sound of electricity, the same sound he recognized from the night he went at it with static. Hey Dwayne, stay put, okay? I'll be right back. Before the kid could even answer, Naruto faded from existence, which Dwayne admittedly found neat. 5 minutes earlier, Virgil, Richie, and their friend Daisy Watkins, a girl Virgil met and befriended in that special school for the gifted, all sat in the mall eating nachos when the yelling started. What's going on down there? Virgil wondered out loud as they all pushed their chairs back and rushed over to the guardrails only to see the large thing stealing from the shops. While Daisy was distracted, Richie leaned over. Yo V, I think you need to get down there, he whispered. I can't go static here, he whispered back, nodding towards the girl. Richie motioned to the plate of nachos on the table, think food poisoning. Suddenly, Virgil hunched over, groaning. Virgil? Daisy cried out in shock, what's wrong? Bathroom. Virgil ran off holding his gut. Richie turned to her, don't worry, I'm sure he'll be fine. Dwayne looked down on his creation with an unsure expression on his face. He wasn't completely sure about this, even though Naruto had said it was fine. He had always heard growing up that stealing was wrong. Dwayne. Dwayne looked over to whoever called his name to see his hero. Static, he called excitedly. Dwayne, what are you doing? Static questioned. You're a good kid, you shouldn't be doing this. Dwayne was confused. But think fast, fly by. Static looked up to see the bottom of a boot press down on his face and send him to the ground below while a familiar blonde landed on his feet a few yards away. Static pushed himself up from the ground and scraped his tongue with his sleeve. Man, my tongue touched it, he thought to himself. Naruto flipped from the ground floor and landed next to Dwayne. Finish him, Dwayne, he ordered with a feral grin. Dwayne saw it and got scared. Now Dwayne, the blonde snarled. Static looked up and saw the blonde beside Dwayne. Dwayne, stop, don't listen to him, he's playing you. Naruto, this ain't right, this ain't the right thing to do. Naruto looked at Static then Dwayne and frowned. I see, he said lowly, fine, if you won't do it, I will. With that, Naruto left Dwayne standing on the second floor and leapt back over the edge where Static was now standing. I told you that we'd meet again, Static, Naruto said while charging up once again. Static did the same as him. Yeah, but last time you weren't using a kid to do your dirty work. Static shot back, making the blonde shrug. You got me there, bootlicker, but the kid's got morals, unlike most kids his age. But I know personally that even a saint can go bad. All you need is a push, Naruto said loudly. I saw his power and knew he had potential. I didn't want to see him waste it like you do, he lied. I don't waste my power, I save people and they love me. Please, Naruto laughed, sending a ball of lightning at him. People like us are freaks. Give them one reason and they'll turn on you. The ones you save will hunt you. The ones who cheer you name will curse it. Being a hero is overrated. The pair fought and Dwayne pulled his knees to his chest with his back to the stone wall. Naruto was using him. That thought coursed through his mind and made tears well up in his eyes. The sound of thunder and zaps echoed all around. He couldn't see it, nor did he want to, but he could hear it all. Why Dwayne? He heard Static yell. Naruto chuckled, because, that boy reminds me of myself at his age. I was a hero and they scorned me for it. Many people tried to kill me. The anger in his voice fit perfectly with a loud explosion that happened. No one deserves that. Naruto and Static locked fists in the middle of the mall. Static was straining against him while Naruto looked like he was sleepy. It's not the right thing, man, Static half yelled. Naruto sneered. It doesn't matter if it's the right thing or not. With our power, we are above the law, he said before twisting Static's hands, making him scream in pain. Dwayne stood up and made a six-armed ninja girl appear which attacked Naruto from behind, surprising the chance to hit him with the strongest blast he could, which exploded, knocking both him and the blonde back. Dwayne sprinted down the steps and walked up to Static, who was standing up, with his head hung low. I don't know what to do, he said sadly. It'll be okay, Static said, patting his shoulder. Naruto groaned and pushed himself up. Okay, that hurt, he said, standing up all the way and making his back pop while poking at a hole in his shirt. Dwayne turned to him with a sad face. Naruto, please stop this, we can't do this, it's not right, he pleaded. The glasses on his face were shattered, so he dropped them to the floor. You think I care about right and wrong? He questioned. Kid, you're just too light-hearted. But remember what I said, people will turn on you if given the chance. He leapt up to the second floor. Nothing personal, kid, alright? He stated before disappearing. Fuck, that hurt, Naruto muttered while rubbing the fading red mark while sitting on a rooftop. Luckily only his shirt was messed up and his new coat was only covered in dust. He stopped as he sensed a few presences behind him and turned as a shadow bulged from the ground and a man in a red shirt and red pants fell through while the shadow itself turned into a man and lastly a bird-like woman landed next to the shadow. The name's Aben, the shadow said before pointing to the other guy. He's Shiv, and this is Talon. He stopped to touch her cheek. She's our little turtle dove. Yo man, we saw how you handled Static and that was tight dog, Shiv said. Yay, and we wanted to see if you wanted to run with us, Talon finished while giving him a hawk-like stare. Naruto looked at them for a minute then smirked, in a random-ass forest. Harley snored lightly as she laid on the vine hammock Ivy made for her and held a framed picture over her heart. She and Ivy had toured the forest all week, camping out or sleeping in treehouses made of plants, and while it wasn't exciting as she would have liked, she found it enjoyable. Except for the bugs. Ivy walked in and sighed at the sight. I swear Harl, she said, walking over and pulling the light blanket over her close friend. She stopped at the sight of picture frame. What's this? She wondered aloud, pulling it from her grasp and turning it over. It was a picture that they had taken with Naruto just before leaving the city. Both she and Harley had their arms around Naruto's neck and he held them around the waist. She was looking at the camera, but Harley was rubbing her cheek against his with a large dopey grin. "Oh Harl," she cooed, rubbing the blonde girl's head, "I'm so proud of you," finally dropping the Joker and moving on. Harley turned in her sleep and snuggled up to her pillow under the blanket. Must be dreaming, Ivy thought. Wonder what she's dreaming about. Harley uncovered her smiling face. Foxy. Ivy nodded. Not surprising. Oh Foxy, harder. Harley moaned as she started humping away at the pillow, making the hammock shift and shake. Ivy's cheeks turned red and she jerked away from and ran from the room quickly. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next part.